looking back. Drop the class, to establish that the magic, it's automatic. Got a mask, who was that? Living legend, lethal weapon, mastermind, never tied, tell him on. If I am in second, it's after no one. Just give me a second to let them know. I'm the headline, the deadline. Big time. I'm ahead time, the rare kind. Big time. I'm a living legend, lethal weapon, mastermind. Big time.
The men's T100 race to Qatar begins here in Singapore with arguably one of the greatest challenges of the season, because these are conditions that take no prisoners. This is a course that pays no change, and this is a race that requires a self-sacrifice that few of us will ever truly understand. So enjoy the calm before the storm, because the men's roller coaster of 24 is rebooted and reloaded and ready to go again in 25.
T100 to me is the UFC of triathlon. You bring together all the distances, Ironman, Olympic distance, sprint distance, all the athletes come to shine over 100-kilometer distance, and that is why, to me, it's the ultimate speed and endurance test that's out there.
It really is the who's who of this sport. We have everybody here.
And a new era of triathlon about to get underway. Magnus Ditlev trying to take the top spot away. First ever winner.
Yuri Kulin has cleared out. He takes a look around. He can't see anyone. Sam Long is storming.
Yuri Kulin has gone to the depths of despair to win. Carl Smith's gone.
Martin's coming.
Oh my God.
Still side by
Marten Van
side.
Riel.
Oh my goodness.
He can see him. He can feel him. Yuri Kulin shouts out. He says, come on, Kyle, go and get him. He wanted the win badly today, and they have gone the wrong way on the course. You can see a man who is chasing the victory. He's taken the lead. Jelle Geens is trying to break Marten Van Riel right now. A three-time champion, the biggest of them all here at Dubai in the grand final. He is your champion and new world champion, Marten Van Riel, everybody.
Yes, it is Marten Van Riel who owns the throne for now, but as we all know, heavy is the head that wears the crown, particularly in triathlon, and no one knows that better than the great Jan Frodeno, who's back with us once again today. Welcome to you, and it is a great pleasure to have Carl Smith alongside as well. I'm sure you'd much rather be on the start line than in studio, but it's a great pleasure for us to have you with us today. Do you just want to explain a little bit about why you're having frothy coffee with us rather than going into the heat of battle? What's happened this week?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Getting ready for this race, obviously it's absolutely brutal conditions, and I pushed my body to the limit and my body pushed back, unfortunately. I was doing lots and lots of heat preparation. I raced here last year and it was absolutely brutal, and so I wanted just to be a bit more prepared than I was last year, and unfortunately just crossed that fine line of being really fit. I took one step too far, and unfortunately I'm here with you today.
And is that sort of train hard, fight easy mentality, or is that just misjudging it?
It's a wee bit of both. Like I said, it's a fine line between being really ready for the race and being really on for that day and crossing that line and, you know, having to sit on the sidelines and watch your competitors have all the fun without you. But yeah, look, the conditions are absolutely brutal today, so I'm sort of 50-50 whether I'd rather be out here or in an air-conditioned studio with you guys.
Well, it is very nice for us to have you with us. I'm going to come to you in just a moment or two, but it's particularly nice to have you with us. We're also very much looking forward to seeing you back out on track. And that is if you give us anything like the moment of last season. The T100 moment of 2024 took place in San Francisco, and here's a quick reminder of what happened.
Oh my goodness, this is the best finish we have seen.
They're side by side.
Carl
Still
Smith,
side by
Marten Van
side.
Riel. Marten Van Riel's in front. Marten Van Riel, Carl Smith. Carl Smith.
Oh my goodness! We are going to need an extra camera angle.
That's the effort. That is the effort of T100. We could not have had a better finish to that race. I don't think a single one of us heart rate is below about 150 beats.
I think we should actually probably apologise for floating that in at the top of the show. I'm just wondering actually whether you ever wake up in the morning dreaming you've won it.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a bit surreal after the race. I gave it everything that race and unfortunately came up millimetres short. I think if I'd grown my chest hairs a little bit more, then I might have got the win. But yeah, look, it was an amazing to be part of that race. Different conditions to what it is today. Yeah. But yeah, I do wish that I was the other side of that
next
finish
time.
line.
Next time for sure. Did you ever have one of those? Which is the finish you remember most vividly?
Well, there are a lot of finishes that I remember, but the one that I came short in, the difference to first place was 0.4 seconds and $175,000. So it was a rather bittersweet moment and a learning process, which I'm sure Carl's also gone through.
Fantastic. Okay, let's move it on to this season, of course, and we're going to take you through the calendar now. Obviously, we begin here in Singapore as the race for Qatar really does begin in the heat. Then we're off to North America, San Francisco in May, Vancouver in June. The European leg involves French Riviera in late June, London on the 9th of August, and then Valencia on the 20th of September. Back to Lake Las Vegas, with a date to be confirmed, and then it's Dubai before the grand final in Qatar in mid-December. And a quick reminder of the rules and the regulations. We've got 20 contracted athletes in both the men and the women. We've got 9 races involved in this year's series, including that Qatar T100 World Championship final in December. Each athlete must race a minimum of 5, including Qatar. Points are obviously scored at each race, 35 for coming first, all the way down to 1 for 20th. An athlete's season score comes from their best 4, plus the points at Qatar, where there are more points on offer, 55 up for grabs for coming first in that one. And then at the end of it all, the world champion takes home a cheque for $200,000 at the end of the season. And let's have a little look at who is on the start line here in Singapore. I'm going to come to you, Jan, first of all. Pick us out 1 or 2 of the runners and riders that you're most intrigued to see in this race.
Well, we've got a whole stacked field, of course. We've got to talk about Jelle Geens being right up there as one of the favorites, reigning 70.3 world champion who has had an unbeaten record here at the T100. I'm very excited to see the likes of Hayden Wilde. I'm very excited to see the return of Vincent. We've got such a star-studded field. There are rookies versus the kind of more accomplished athletes. I am very, very excited for this one.
And you're obviously right in amongst it. Tell us who the characters are that wear their self-confidence very outwardly and those who like to just go along the under-promise, over-deliver type theory.
Yeah, I think this Singapore race is really humbling. I think if you go in with big expectations, I think if you overdo it in this race at one time, then it can be all over. And so I think managing your emotions is super important here. But you look, someone like Sam Long had an amazing race here last year. He was lapping up the crowd. It looked like he enjoyed every moment of it. And he's, you know, a character who's larger than life. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him race out there.
We had 41 athletes in the men's side of the draw last year who took to race day, and we had 14 of them who finished on a podium, which to me shows there is real strength and depth across the group. Are you expecting that to go up another gear this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what makes T100. You know, it is something we saw in the women's race yesterday. I mean, a rookie to the T100 series blowing the field apart, and that is the beauty of it that we're seeing, especially in a post-Olympic cycle. Last year was the Olympics, a lot of athletes stepping up, and that poses a real threat and challenge to those more accomplished athletes.
And have you trained as if the bar is going to go up again this year, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can only do what you can do, right? You have to have your own sort of training philosophy and just know that what works, but there's no doubt about it that you also think about the guys like Jelle, the guys like Hayden who are coming in, and they're just lifting the bar, especially on the run, and the sport just keeps evolving, and it's incredibly exciting, but it also poses a challenge for someone like myself, and I have to meet that if I want to keep winning races.
And we've obviously got the athletes getting ready to take to the start line now. Having raced here last year, tell us what Singapore asks of you that perhaps other courses don't.
Yeah. It's the obvious one, it's the heat, and it really saps your body. It's a course that really rewards just mental toughness, someone who can just keep moving forward despite that horrible feeling of feeling like you're sinking, honestly. It feels like you're in quicksand when you're running along. It feels like you've got lead weights in your shoes, and you just got to keep moving forward. You know, I ran super slow here last year, and I still got 5th, and it's just a testament just to keep trudging forward, and you never know what can happen. But look, I think it's going to be really interesting, you know, like Kate woke up yesterday morning, I didn't think she was going to know what she was going to do. And I think it could be the same today. I think we could have an outlier who could come in and just wipe the floor of everybody.
We shall see what happens. Now, of course, it's not just the elite athletes who are taking centre stage here in Singapore, because the amateur side of the T100 is growing race by race as well. And Jan was up with the Sparrows this morning, out on course. Have a little listen to this.
Let's go. That's it. Here we go. Come on, Matt. What up? Get after it. Hey, mate.
Thanks, man.
Sure thing. Let's go.
Thank you, man.
Of course. Only a pleasure, buddy. Get after it. Yep. Let's go. Whoa. 2 more. Go, go, go. You win the Style Awards. Let's go, my friend.
Let's go, guys. Ice water, ice water. Whoa. Jesus, quick, 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 go. Jesus, go on. Nice to meet you. First ever man qualified for Qatar. Awesome, buddy. Well done. Well done, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
You want some more? Are you good? You probably need a Coke or something.
Well, great to see the man of the people out on course. I'm not sure we'll ever have Lewis Hamilton changing front left wheels in a pit lane, but it's nice to see you out there with those who are doing it tough this morning. And the question to you, you've been at the very tip of the spear for so long. How much are you enjoying seeing those that do triathlon for the love of it rather than the glory of it?
Well, you know, I think we all somehow have to do it for a love of the sport because the sport is very tough. And the thing that combines triathlon is that the amateurs and age groupers get to go on the same course. We're out in the same city, same conditions, and we share battle stories. You know, it's a very genuine interaction. And to give someone a pat on the back, you know, it's actually a very nice and easy way to make someone's day. And that's kind of what you need out there, just a little surprise, someone to give you a little pat on the back, say, let's go.
You certainly did that. Encouragement from the GOAT, and that's the GOAT of yesteryear. We had an announcement and an arrival in T100 yesterday. Hopefully you can see that without the wind getting in the way too much. This is the Singapore Sunday Times that has led with that fabulous victory from Kate Woff yesterday. Put that into words for us. Was that a surprise for someone as embedded in the sport as you are, or did you know that that was coming?
Yeah, look, I think it was a surprise for everyone, and especially Kate, I'd say. I think obviously coming in as a rookie, her first really long distance, foray into long distance, yeah, it was super surprising. And to wipe the field of such a classy athlete as well by, you know, the biggest winning margin in T100 history, and to do it in these conditions and to make it look as easy as she did was incredible.
You were slightly blown away in the moment. What is your reflection? What is it, 20 hours on or so?
I'm still blown away. I mean, that was the biggest winning margin we've ever seen by a rookie in these conditions, nonetheless. You know, she rode extremely strong, but stayed within herself. It was such a mature race for somebody who's never seen the T100 stage, and to have the confidence against the names. You know, we had Olympic champions, we had world champions in the field, and she just stepped up, delivered, and executed. It was wonderful.
And we shall see who does just that in the men's race today. I'm always fascinated by these moments as an athlete before you get into the water and go to work type thing. Give us a little sense of what it is like in the marquee behind us as the athletes come down. What, it's about an hour before the race actually begins, and now these moments when you have to wait to get called to the start line. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I try and stay calm as much as I can. Like, you're going to be out there for, you know, over 3.5 hours, and so the amount of energy that you can save by, for me at least, staying calm. Whereas you get someone like Sam Long, who's in the athlete lane, banging his chest, singing the national anthem, and really getting himself fired up for the race. So it's definitely interesting, but whatever you find works for you, or the athletes who works for them, then that's what they got to do before the race.
Fantastic. You've set it up beautifully as a number of the athletes are down on the start line. A reminder, of course, the race to Qatar begins here in Singapore. We are ready to go with the men's T100, and we'll hand you over to the announcer.
Wearing number 18 from New Zealand, he is the second place in the silver medal at the Paris Olympic Games 2024, Hayden Wilde. Wearing number 10 from Belgium, he was first place in Lake Las Vegas 2024, Jelle Geens. Wearing number 6 from the Netherlands, he is your Singapore T100 defending champion, Yuri Kulin. Wearing number 4 from the United States of America, he was second place in Singapore T100 2024, Sam Long. And wearing number 1 from Belgium, he was first place in Ibiza, first place in San Francisco, and first place in the 2024 Grand Final. He wears number 1, Marten Van Riel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Time for your second helping of T100 this weekend. The race to Qatar is well and truly underway here in Singapore.
Take your marks.
So away we go here in Singapore. Some of the finest triathletes in the world ready to go through a world of pain over the next few hours to see who will be crowned our T100 Singapore champion. Up first, 2 kilometers of the De Boer swim course in the fresh water of Marina Bay before the athletes make their way to the first transition zone. The conditions, put simply, are absolutely brutal. A water temperature of 30 degrees, an air temperature of 33.6 degrees. I'm Matt Baker, and once again, alongside me for this one, the 2018 World Triathlon champion and Olympic and Commonwealth Games medalist, Vicky Holland. Our second race of the weekend, Vicky. How excited are you for this one?
I'm not sure I've come down from yesterday yet, actually, Matt. You know, it was so goosebump-inducing watching that. It was actually really emotional. I think just seeing the delight on some of those girls' faces at the end and just knowing how much they've put into it. So I am pumped that we are going again today.
Start of a new season on the T100, and our first look here at the swim. And keep your eye on Vincent Luis. He's in the yellow cap there. And the white one, we will try and identify for you. That's Max Stapley.
Yeah, so unsurprising at this point in the swim, we've got those two leading it out. They have both come across from short course racing and are well known in that distance as being our lead swimmers. Max is a wild card, only got his entry to this race relatively recently and is very, very keen to prove himself. He was all week when I've seen him around, he's just been incredibly excited and incredibly grateful to be here, and I know he wants to put a marker down and show what he can do. And Vincent, of course, one of our hotshots, so this is his first season focusing fully on the T100 circuit and doing this middle distance racing, and I know he will be looking to put a marker down early too.
Just see Max there looking up, sighting. How, I mean, on a course like this, is this one of the simpler courses that our triathletes will experience this year? How important is sighting, making sure you're going in the right direction and not expending energy going in the wrong one?
Pretty huge, to be honest with you. You can swim a lot further if you get it wrong. So yeah, being able to consistently check and swim in a very straight line is massively, massively helpful. One of the things that often comes into play is where the sun is. So if the sun is not coming directly at you, it's a lot easier to spot those turn buoys. It's obviously significantly harder if you're looking up into the sun glare. It's not too bad out there today, so they should be okay, but it is definitely a factor that they have to consider.
And interesting, on that point, we've got a fair spread, haven't we, of athletes going in slightly different directions, all seemingly in a straight line, but taking different lines towards that buoy, and I guess that will impact exactly how far they're going to be in the water this afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. They're still quite spread out. That didn't happen yesterday. They all sort of converged together quite early on and made one long line. That's definitely not the way it's gone so far today. There is a third spearhead coming on this near side of the screen. We're not getting eyes on them too easily, but we do know that Marten Van Riel will be on that side of the swim pack, whereas, as we said, it's Vincent Louis on the other. And we're just getting now our first eyes on Sam Long. Now, this is no surprise. Sam Long will have been fully expecting this for his day. He loves the race here in Singapore. He was second last year and he did come out the water with a 4-minute deficit. So let's just keep our eyes on the clock there and see how he fares today, because I think he will be thinking if he comes out with 4 minutes, it's still game on.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that he's been working hard on his swim over the winter, trying to minimize the damage in the opening third of the race. Let's have a listen to what he's been working on over the break.
Seemed to go well here in Singapore, and the crowd loves me here, and of course we've got new names, we've got new wild cards, we've got new hot shots here, and it's going to be interesting to see where I stand, right? Nobody knows quite where everyone is, and we always want to notice my swim as a weakness, right? It's a blaring weakness, and I've been putting as much focus and as much emphasis into it as I can to possibly improve. And at times it's been tiring, it's been draining, right? It's taken my whole soul to kind of learn how to be a better swimmer, if we can say it like that. But at the same time, it's about being the best triathlete you can be, right? It's about crossing the finish line as the best triathlete. It's not the best swimmer who wins races. It's not the best biker who wins races. It's not the best runner who wins races. It's being the best triathlete. And so in a way, the swim is a blessing for me, having a weekend swim, because it forces me to be mentally stronger, right? Because I am put in the spotlight straight away and get a lot of criticism, but I actually see that as a blessing because it's built up my mental capacity so much.
Well, a couple of things to pick up on there. Number one, a fantastic jacket for interviews. I think some of the other athletes could maybe...
He's been very well dressed all week.
He has been very well dressed all week. So, yeah, kudos to Sam Long there. But I think... And I think it was laid bare, wasn't it, in Dubai at the end, in that interview with Rachel, where he broke down in tears about the mental toll it takes to be at the back of these races and come through the field. He will argue, as he did in that interview, that it actually has now become a strength of his. But I do wonder, you know, for Sam Long, how important that's going to be going forward.
Yeah, he touched on it there, and I think he's absolutely right. It has forced him to be incredibly mentally tough. He is coming to these races, and he knows before the gun goes off that he's going to be completely on his own out the back. So that's a real strength. So back at the front of the race, and it's still Vincent Luis with Max Stapley on his feet. Not really a huge surprise there, and I wonder if they might, you know, start to consider sharing the load on lap 2. We definitely saw that yesterday in the women's race. It was Lucy Charles-Barclay who led out on lap 1, and then Jess Learmont who took the lead on lap 2 and really started to stretch out that pack and ping a few athletes off the back of it. So with a 2-lap course, it's great because you can just have a look around and see whether you've done enough damage.
So I was going to ask you, Vicky, on the subject of sharing that load at the front of a race, for example, will athletes ever discuss this before the race? Is there ever a bit of tactics amongst the good swimmers, or is that something that you just rely on and hope for, perhaps, that you'll get from your fellow competitors?
No, it absolutely is, and it is especially in short course racing, because there's such an advantage to getting away in the swim. You can ride as a pack then and make a really big difference and make, you know, cause a lot of damage to your competitors. In this type of racing, it's not as common because it's so individual once you get out onto the bike. It doesn't happen as often, but we did hear of it once or twice last season where athletes were sort of having dinner together before the race and discussing how they might cause a bit of damage, cause a break. And whilst there is not as much of a benefit to coming out in the front pack, there is still a benefit. You still want to be in that long line of riders that are all going a similar pace. You know, you want to be in the race from the beginning, so there is still an advantage trying to get rid of some of those top competitors early on.
Well, stunning shots there of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. 2,561 hotel rooms and the world's largest atrium casino. They do things pretty big and pretty well here in Singapore.
Big and bold, yes, big and bold, absolutely.
Yet to go on top of that. Maybe we'll do that this evening after we're done down here. But our focus isn't on that, it's on the swim as our athletes make their way through this freshwater course in the Marina Bay, the Singapore Flyer just there in the background. And Singapore on a day like today looks absolutely stunning, I'm sure, to people at home, but it's probably time to start talking about just how warm it is out there right now for these athletes.
Well, I'm just going to pick up now, it feels like, and we were going to get a better camera angle in a second, it feels like Vincent's taking them very, very wide, and it felt like he was going wide on the way out as well. Because those two groups split quite a lot, it was hard to tell who was taking the better line, but I would say that Vincent is drifting off to the left a little bit, and because we are now in one big long line of athletes, it feels like he's gone a lot wider than he needs to. Now, that yellow buoy that we can see in front of him, that's just a sighting buoy. So that's kind of there to help, to guide you, but it's not exactly in line, so you don't need to use that so much. But it seems like he's completely disregarding that and come really, really right over to the edge of the bay here. So, yeah, I think at the moment he's forcing them all to swim a little bit further than necessary.
In a way that perhaps athletes might have gone for dinner the night before and discussed tactics, they might be asking for him to apologise for the extra work they're having to do in the water.
Might help someone like Sam Long if everyone else in front is swimming a bit further. We've obviously got another athlete here who's not made it onto that pack, but pretty much everyone else is strung on the back there. I did notice when we last got the sight of the front pack that Marten Van Riel was in there. He was sitting in about 4th place. I didn't quite catch who it was in 3rd. I thought it might have been Menno Koolhaus, but unfortunately we cut away before I could confirm who that was. But yeah, so it seems from the angle we've got here that we might have 4 or 5 with a tiny gap back to pretty much 10 athletes, it would seem. So yeah, not much separation at all at the front of the race so far.
So the athletes taking the long way around here in the Marina Bay in Singapore. The boat there can't actually go any further to try and direct the athletes in the right direction. It's right up against the side.
You can see the camera on the front of it couldn't really get where it wanted to go, which is why we've got these overhead shots at the moment. So we apologise we're not bringing you, the very front of the race at the moment, but I think we're gonna go and blame Vincent for that, for dragging everyone so far over to the edge that the camera boat couldn't get there.
Not the most popular man in Singapore this afternoon, it's fair to say.
Poor Vincent, we're going in on him early here, aren't we? It might have been tactical, who knows?
Exactly, right. So the athletes are going to make their way around the final buoy and then onto the Aussie exit, where we'll get our first chance to understand the time splits between each of the athletes in the field. And that is the final buoy you can just see in shot there. Vicky, in terms of tactics for an Aussie exit, we saw yesterday in the women's race a lot of them getting out and looking pretty knackered. Do you just try and use a bit of that time? It's not a big exit here. It's probably about 10-15 seconds you get respite in the water, but what's your tactics on an Aussie exit?
Yeah, they probably don't even get that much on this course today. It's really short and sharp up that ramp and back in again. We saw Jess Learmonth use it as an opportunity to have a look around and see that actually there were more athletes with her than she wanted. So at that point she decided to put her foot down a little bit, go to the front and take her turn. And that's the sort of thing they've got time to do here. Other than that, there's not really very much. I would say one of the hardest things about an Aussie exit is going from being prone to being stood up to then going back down again to being prone, and it can really sort of change your blood pressure a little bit and make you feel a bit almost like lightheaded and make your legs feel a bit heavy. There we go, so Marten Van Riel coming through on the screen there in that orange hat, so he has made it as we expected from him.
And that's Leo Bergere.
Leo Bergere, of course, in that sort of teal coloured hat there. And that with the purpose down his arm, that is actually Jelle Geens. So in the white hat just in front of Leo Bergere, that's Jelle Geens. That's a fantastic swim from him, because if there was a weakness for Jelle, it was his swim.
So our first chance to see, and exactly as your point, I was going to say, little stumbles there, aren't they, as they get out and they...
And Max looking back exactly as we thought he might do. That's Menno Koolhaas, I think, in third, Marten Van Riel in fourth. I think that might have been Tyler. We'll have a quick check when that comes up. Tyler Mislachuk, fifth place there.
Nice little belly flop there from Leo
Yeah, Tyler
Bergere.
Mislachuk has made that group. So that's a group of 6. Then at the front of the next group, that's Justus Nieschlag. We've got a couple of lost hats in there. Antonio Benite Lopez, he doesn't have a hat on anymore. That's the red hat there of Hayden Wilde. So there's only about 8 seconds separating the back of the front group and the start of the second, but that is crucial.
And he'll absolutely love being that close, won't he, at this point in the swim, Hayden Wilde?
Yeah, for him, that's a huge deal. He knows, again, if he's an athlete who has any weakness, it is on the swim. I don't think it's a real weakness, not in this level of field or in this sort of distance of racing, I should say. But yeah, to be 8 seconds down after one lap of this De Boer swim course is ideal for him.
Okay, well, just like last season, across the year, athletes are going to be competing to become the T100 World Champion. But who will finish first this year in the race to Qatar?
We have a race on our hands.
So a brand new race to finish the year with, plenty though to do between now and the end of the season before we crown our eventual race to Qatar champion. And it's very early stages, but in pole position here is Vincent Louis, Max Stapley just behind, and then Koolhaas, Van Riel and the Canadian Mislachuk just behind.
Yeah, so those 5 athletes are now starting to put some bigger gaps into the athletes behind. We've got one athlete who looks like they've tried to swim off the front of that pack, and we saw that yesterday with Taylor Spivey. She found herself slightly on the wrong side of a split and then popped herself round, and then later on in the swim we also saw Julie Deron do the same when of course Flora started to struggle a little bit later on in the swim. So we have seen it before. It's incredibly hard to do that, and even harder in the heat, the conditions that we have with the water here. It is sapping, it is draining, and you don't want to put in those surges because they will spike your body temperature. And once your temperature is up, it's incredibly hard to get it back down. And we know what happened to so many of those girls yesterday. They just don't want to try and get too hot too soon.
Well, this is Sam Long, our back marker, going through the Aussie exit now, and we'll get a good understanding of the time difference between him and the leaders, and I think it's going to be around, we'll find out any second.
Just waiting on the update.
3:02.
3:02.
Okay.
So as we said earlier, last year he was exactly 4 minutes down coming out the swim. Now, he might benefit on lap 2 that he can just even pace it, and the sort of surges that people put in right off the dive, they're not going to happen on lap 2. But right now, that's looking on track to be a bigger time deficit than he faced last year. So he's going to have even more work to do than ever if he's going to get himself back up into contention in this race.
You can see there the Art Science Museum. Sam Long, funnily enough, was in there the other day. It's a great video on the T100 YouTube channel. I encourage you to check it out. Him going through some lasers, looking very perplexed and bemused.
I think he said it was a bit trippy, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. So there we go, good view there of Vincent Louis right at the very front, and right on his feet is Max Stapley, I should say.
Yeah, Vincent has a really distinctive swim style. That hand that's nearest to us sort of turns almost entirely inwards and then slides into the water. It's really unique, whereas Max behind has a much sort of longer swinging arm stroke. So just really interesting to see, I guess, those different strokes from two excellent swimmers.
And in that group that we just saw was Marten Van Riel. Are you surprised to see him so far up at this stage? I mean, he is. We spoke about it yesterday. There were a number of athletes that raced Ironman South Africa last weekend. He actually led out the swim in Ironman South Africa, so he had a brilliant performance there. The question is about the recovery, but he's gone quite hard early on here, hasn't he?
I'm not surprised at all, actually. You know, Marten is an exceptional all-round athlete. Of course he is. That's why he's our T100 World Champion. But on top of that, he's a fantastic swimmer. He always has been. And while we're not entirely sure what version of Marten we're going to see today, I don't think he even knows what version of Marten's going to come out to play today after the efforts he put in last week in that Ironman race. But I'm not super surprised to see him performing well early. Now, as we're talking about it, there seems to be a little bit of a split going on in that group as one of the athletes tries to move around, but we can't quite work out who that is just yet.
Fantastic close-up there of Marten Van Riel.
When we got that shot back to the second group, it looked like it was Rico Bogan on the front of that group trying to make sure that that damage was limited to the group in front. It seems to be doing a pretty good job. I wouldn't have said it's blown out very much at all since they did that sort of Aussie exit dive re-entry back into the water. So it's maybe come out a little bit, but not very much. So he's doing a really good job of leading that second pack.
Yeah, Rico Bogan leading the Germans. There's 4 of them all in a row there as they make their way towards the pontoon here in Singapore. Should speak about Rico Bogan, really. I mean, a tremendous season on the T100 last year. Finished 3rd overall, the highlight being that second in Dubai. A brilliant performance from him.
Yeah, I think we saw an amazing race from Rico early on in the season in San Francisco. But after that point, we didn't see as much from him, especially in the warmer races. And he has this sort of reputation as being someone who loves it when it's cold, doesn't do very well in the heat. And he played into that reputation almost with the way he was racing last season. And then Dubai came around and he showed all of us what he can do with amazing preparation for that. I know he went in really hard with his team on his specific preparations for that race and showed absolutely everybody what he can do and ran Marten Van Riel very, very close to the line coming in second. So he's shown that he can do it in all conditions. His hat's popped off now, I think, so that will actually give him a little bit of a bonus. You're not allowed to take your hat off, but if it does fall off during the swim, that's something that they won't tend to be penalised for. So that will maybe give him a little bit of a bonus.
Brilliant overhead shot here of the athletes as they're in the water. Just a question for you really on drafting and the impact of that. We can see like there's an athlete just in the middle there between two. Is that a good position to be in? Is that a trickier position? I mean, they're almost hitting each, like he's right in there, isn't he?
I think that's Yuri, but I can't quite tell because I know Yuri did have a coloured hat on, but he's not wearing it anymore. So I think that might be Yuri. Being tucked in there is actually quite a nice place to be. It's a really lovely sort of slipstream area. But it's always a balance of finding the perfect place that makes you as fast as possible and that you can do it as easily as possible. And also that you're not then slowing down the people that you're right next to, because the whole point is you want them to still be dragging you along pretty fast too.
And they're splitting across the yellow buoy, which they are very much allowed to do, just a sighting buoy in order to get them to the red one, which you can just see at the top of your shot there, which is the critical one that they're aiming for.
Yeah, and I think that's Fred Funk just come through at the bottom of our screen there, so he has just sort of popped off the back of that group. He's not lost too much time, but he has just been distanced by that big second group.
So a couple of distinct groups here. Slightly different form, isn't it, to the women's race yesterday? Fascinating to see the different tactics play out across the racing here in Singapore.
So back with that Funk group, and there's not been too much change. There may be a little bit of distance appearing between swimmer number 4 and 5 in that group. That is Jelle Geens swimming as number 5 in that group, so he's just starting to lose the feet a little bit. And this is exactly what happened yesterday when Flora started to lose it, and so it'll be interesting to see whether Leo picks up on that, and if he does, whether he's worried, decides that he needs to pop it round and try and hop on the feet, or whether actually he's quite content sitting there and he doesn't mind losing just a few seconds towards the end of this swim.
Well, they've only got just under 400 metres to go before they're going to make their way to the transition zone. And I guess at this point, is it perhaps just about holding position? It would take a lot of energy, wouldn't it, to overtake and try and lead them into the transition zone. So maybe you just sit back and just appreciate where you are.
That's it. You've got to decide how critical you think it is to get yourself back onto that group, or whether actually with a race of this length in these conditions, it's actually not worth it.
You can see the max heart rates there. These are specific to the athlete's swimming abilities. Not quite sure Yuri Kulin, is it 57%?
If it's 57%, I would say Yuri might want to go a little bit harder, but then again, he also had not just an excellent result here last year, so, you know, who am I to judge, but he did also end up with a really big heat episode at the end of the race. Doesn't remember finishing the race, so maybe, you know, just protecting himself a little bit.
Perhaps he's got a bit of drafting.
Yes, that's it. That's that position we were talking about. He's in the perfect spot, so he's actually finding it really easy. And, you know, I would love to know whether if that's accurate data, maybe that is truly the reason. He was in the perfect drafting spot, and actually, therefore, his heart rate is low.
But conversely, the likes of Marten Van Riel up there at 92%, just showing you how hard they're working. And to your point earlier, Vicky, about cooling down and making sure they're in a good place when they get out of transition, that they want to get their heart rate down as much as possible, cool off as much as possible, which will enable them to start the bike.
Yeah, and we're sure to see them more do the dunking of the ice over their head. They're provided with a box of ice in both transition zones, so it'll be replenished in between T1 and T2. And they can use that as they wish. Some of them have it all in their helmets already. Some of them have some of it in the helmet, some of it in the box, throw it over their own heads. All different sort of tactics that we'll see. We know Jan is going to be down there at the transition zone, so he can talk us through it when they come through.
So eyes then on the pontoon, the exit here of the De Boer swim course. Vincent Louis of France still in front here, still leading these guys out.
Interestingly, behind Leo Bergere has now gone round. It's not Tyler Misterchuk, of course. Sorry, it's Jelle Geens. But it's too late. It's not going to make a difference. But now he's just minimising that gap.
So Vincent Louis makes his way onto the exit. And we're going to go down and join Jan and Alex. And they're going to see these guys come through.
Yes, welcome down to transition of the first of the athletes emerge from the water, ready to get on to the bikes. The great man is alongside. I'd love to know your thought process, your mentality at T1. What was the process for you coming out of the water and getting onto the bike?
Well, the process here is one of, being organized. There's obviously the thing that you don't want to do is make a mistake right here, because it's been a tough battle to get here. 30-degree water makes a big difference. They had some trouble sighting, which we were able to see on screen a little bit earlier. And you just want to make sure you're smooth. You can't win the race here, but it can take you a lot of energy to close a little gap. As we see our first man coming on, Vincent Louis, the man we expected to come out, the coolest man of triathlon coming out, followed by Max Stapley right up the front. And that looks like Marten Van Riel, our champion, our third. I would not have put money on that. He has obviously got a full Ironman in his legs. He comes out ahead of Menno Koolhaas, one of the favored men for the swim right here. Leo Bergere out next, another French powerhouse. Tyler Mischler, one of our men who races the best in the heat that I know of. Everybody looks super smooth, happy to get that ice that they all keep in their helmets. The group of 10 has split into a group of 6 as we see Rico Bogan coming out next. This man is obviously known to struggle in the heat, but I think he's worked on it very much. Followed by the German trio. We've got Mika Nude and we've got Justus Nieschlag coming out. Ahead of Jelle Geens, one of the big favorites, and right in front of us is none other than Hayden Wilde, Olympic silver medalist. Greg Barnaby out there, Yannick Stoffler. It's on, it's close. It's much closer than what we saw the field bunched up being yesterday.
It really is, a proper sense of drama actually as they all go onto the bikes and out onto the road. From your perspective at this point, are you thinking race strategy? Are you racing what your watch is telling you? Are you working out how you're feeling physically, or are you seeing what everyone else is doing around you?
Well, this is chaotic, right? Because you want to get into your shoes fast. You don't want to lose any time. At the same time, every position you lose means you lose 20 meters because of the drafting rules. That means if you're sitting in 10th place, you're sitting a minimum of 200 meters behind the leaders, and that's a long way to make up. As we see Fred Funk coming out, the man is prepared in Australia and is getting ready to get onto his bike. It's probably not even that big of a gap. It's probably, I don't know, been a minute or so by the feel of things since Vincent Louis headed out. But a smooth swim from him, as there's only a few athletes left. One of them being Sam Long.
One of them is indeed Sam Long, who will be here, I'm sure, just as quickly as he can, and he will be doing all he can on the bike to get himself back into this one. We promised you drama today, and T1 has certainly provided that. Back to you in commentary.
The thing that I want to pick up on there, we've got 16 athletes within a minute of the lead.
Yeah, I was literally just looking at that myself. Yeah, 16 athletes to 53 seconds. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
So eyes here on Sam Long as he will make his way out. Beg your pardon, that's not Sam Long. We'll try and get eyes on him as soon as possible. My apologies. Nicholas Mann, I beg your pardon. There we go.
Yeah, I think we might be waiting just a little bit longer to see Sam Long. As we said, he was 3 minutes down at the swim exit for the Aussie exit at the end of lap 1, and you know, he was only 4 minutes down coming out last year. We're now at 3.5 minutes down for Nicholas Mann. I think it's going to be a while before we see Sam Long.
So first look at Marten Van Riel on the bike, on a brand new, pretty snazzy looking red metallic bike. Looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It's a decent looking bike. Yeah, he's got the same bike as Sam Long, I believe, same sponsor, so very different athletes, but we should be able to tell them apart pretty easily, but they are riding on the same bike. And a lot of these athletes here today choosing to wear predominantly white suits. That's not super surprising given the heat. You always want to have maybe, you know, a bit of a reflective suit to try and help you combat that a little bit. Martin's, though, is quite distinctive with these sorts of red tiger stripes, I'm going to call them, down his suit. So yeah, it's always easy to pick out Marten, and of course with his distinctive helmet as well.
And just a reminder, the graphics there, those will update once they go over the first timing marker on the bike. So that's very much as it was at the swim exit. We'll get those updated as soon as they make their way over that timing checkpoint.
That's Vincent Louis there in second, so obviously first out the water and still right up there. But there's going to be such a long line of athletes. When we look down, 16 athletes, there's barely going to be anything to separate them. This is going to be interesting how this starts to splinter. If it does splinter, who's going to make a move? Overtaking is going to be incredibly difficult at this point because you need to pretty much overtake the entire pack unless there has been a significant gap occurred in the middle. It's going to be really challenging for those athletes a bit further back.
So there we go, eyes on Sam Long, getting out the water. We will then be able to just understand how far back he is and what he's got to do on the bike. Phenomenal on the bike, we know that. We know he's a good runner as well, finished second here last year, but it's a 5:37. So he had a good second half of that swim. He was able to make a bit of time back.
Or rather just lose less time on lap 2, right, than he did on lap 1. And I thought that might happen. The real speed of lap 1 doesn't tend to happen on lap 2. But yeah, that is a minute and a half bigger deficit that he's got to overcome than he did last year. So probably not the start he would hope for. But if anybody can overcome these kind of distances, it is Sam Long. We've seen him do it before. And he is, as he said, incredibly mentally tough, and he knows he's just got to ride his own race, do his own thing, look after himself in these conditions, and he'll probably find himself ploughing through the field later on.
An incredibly popular athlete. He's got a smile on his face as he can hear the crowd cheering. And he'll make his way into this transition zone, take off his swim skin, and he'll want to get on the bike pronto.
Just a little bit of time to put some ice down the back there. Oh, whole ice box over his head as well. So noticing that he's not wearing a proper aero helmet, he's wearing more of what we call a road cycling helmet. So that again will be done more than likely to keep him a bit cooler. Those aero helmets are incredibly hot. They're quite draining to wear those for the full sort of 2 hours of this bike course, and he's gone for a more road cycling helmet, which I imagine is a cooling strategy.
Time to welcome into the commentary box the Olympic gold medalist, multiple world champion, Jan Frodeno. Good afternoon to you. You can enjoy some aircon just for a little bit, Jan.
I can tell you what, out there, when you're in the direct sunlight, it feels apocalyptic. It's even more than yesterday. It's absolutely crazy warm what these athletes are going through. I noticed the same thing that you did. There are a few athletes not choosing aero helmets, and I think it might be a smart choice today.
So here we go. We can see on screen five athletes. I'll check I'm counting that right. All very, very close to each other. And at this point in the course, you can see all of their race rangers flashing red as 2 more join them. So just to explain, if you're new to the T100, the race ranger is the device on the back of the bike that will tell you how close you are to the person in front. We're a non-drafting form of triathlon on the T100. So if it's flashing red, that means you're within 20 meters. It means you will get penalized. So these guys are going to have to work out pretty quickly in order to not get penalized. Jan, what are they going to do here?
So the thing is that you really want to make sure you get out of that drafting zone. Technically, once the light flashes, you actually have to pass. I think in the early stages, the referees will be lenient, but Hayden's got to really watch out here. If he doesn't go past, that is technically a penalty.
Because he's gone backwards there,
got to go all the way past, and that is the trickiness of these big packs. If there's 10 athletes, you know, in theory, there's a minimum of 200 meters to the front, and you have got 45 seconds to pass each of these athletes. You can see Hayden's light has just stopped flashing there. I wonder if we can see a technical official coming in on the left here, eyeing this closely. I think this is kind of first lap chaos. But
they were also going up the hill as well, and I know that they have been told that there will be more leniency on the utilization of race ranger and the drafting as they go up the hill, because the benefit is so much less. So we know that there was a lot of flashing lights there, but it might not mean there's going to be any penalties for that reason.
We're going down.
Can there be any more lenient than they have been in the past? I'm joking, sorry. Inside joke for all the T100 fans who've been here for a long time. We have had our fun with these penalties. And honestly, I think this is just the chaos of finding the pace in the first bits.
All right, well, we can see once again Hayden's reaction, because he was pretty furious, wasn't he?
So the thing is that he can see that there's no space and he's getting upset, and really I can't see what he's really getting upset about. I think he's trying to show that he's making an effort to go past, but technically he's got himself into the position that he needs to pass, and the athlete
didn't go past him, so it's not a blocking.
I wonder if he was saying that he thought Max had slotted in and that because Max Stapley was the athlete who's now in third, and I just wonder, he was following Max as they both sort of overtook in the line.
Oh, and he went quite
very
wide there.
close there to the edge.
Goodness me.
And I just wonder if that's what he thought happened. I don't think Max did anything wrong, but I wonder if from Hayden's position, maybe that's what he thought had happened. And I don't know.
Honestly, it's early in the race. Adrenaline is flying high, and that's the problem of these tight packs. You know, especially someone like Hayden, he's used to having to fight his position to come out and get to the front. He's got himself into a strong position early on, and, you know, the adrenaline is going to rush over. And as things go on, they're going to find their rhythm and they're going to find their spacing. You can see now they're perfectly spaced out. None of the lights are even on. That means that no one's even close, which is always difficult to tell from this perspective. You know, the camera makes everything appear closer, but we can see on the lights, at least me and my short sight, that no one's got their lights on.
Well, we know Hayden is experienced in the 70.3, came second in topple at the World Championships at the back end of last year, but are these moments like this, oh, there he is again, still not happy. Are moments like this, though, perhaps indicative of him learning a new sport, middle distance triathlon?
Well, what happened here is that the athlete in front of him, so that's
Marten, isn't it?
It looks like Marten is slowing down, and he wasn't happy because he feels that he needs to pass. And Marten obviously used the moment to sit up. Can we just talk for a second about how good it is that Marten Van Riel is in this front pack? I did not expect to see much of him today after his performance last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it a tiny bit during the swim, and I would say I felt that if he was going to stick around at all, it would be during the swim. It's the one where if you get yourself into a really nice position, you get such a benefit with that drafting effect, and that he might just be able to tuck in there for that 2-kilometer swim. But the proof in the pudding is going to be as we continue in this race. You know, there is surely his legs have got to still be feeling it from last week. He was also ill before that race. He's done long haul travel. It's been a brutal 10 days.
I saw him in the lobby of the hotel holding a Subway sandwich, and he said to me, you know, Jan, I really think I haven't been eating enough this week.
Oh God, so that's going on as well. So
yeah, this hazy look in his eyes.
Just to add to everything, I did a Q&A session with Marten yesterday, and he did say before we started that was the first day he'd started to come around a little bit and start to feel a little bit more life. But woof, that's cutting it fine, isn't it, the morning before the race to start feeling that your legs might be coming back to you.
Well, you were quite critical, Jan, yesterday of the couple of athletes that we saw in the women's race who raced that Ironman in South Africa last weekend. I wonder if Marten maybe heard you and he's going to try and prove you wrong. Perhaps he's got a bit of fuel in the fire.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really what you want, right? You want to silence the critics, and I definitely am a critic of that kind of strategy. As we get eyes on Rico Bogan, who has made up
another one who likes to prove us wrong,
and has absolutely proven himself to be a much better athlete in the heat than we thought he would be. There's a lot of movement in his pedal stroke yet, so he's shifting a lot back and forth in the saddle.
He's got a really high cadence there as well, hasn't he? He's riding a really small gear almost, which I'm quite surprised at.
So the fine balance to be had here is that this course is either up or down, and these athletes, most of them are riding a 1-by setup, which means they've only got one chainring in the front. And the problem is that gear has got to get you up onto the bridge, which is quite steep. And then on the way down, you want a bigger chainring in order to be able to keep your cadence low. And that's a tricky balance, and well, I think some of the athletes have chosen to go with a smaller chainring in order to get up the hill and preserve the energy, because it can be very taxing on the muscular structure, especially for later stages in the bike and the run.
Well, let's have another look at that second time that Hayden Wilde was pretty angry with, in this case, Marten Van Riel. Felt he should have been able to pass, or felt maybe Marten Van Riel had slowed down?
Yeah, absolutely. He's just gone past him, which is probably the right thing. You want to sit fairly far in the front of a pack in order to avoid this kind of trouble. You can see that Marten probably wasn't paying the best of attention. He was just rehydrating, using the fact that he was getting close. and you have this concertina effect at the bottom of a bridge. It's very classical. You come in high speed from the flat, and then everybody in the front slows down a little bit, which means that everybody from the back kind of ties in. And that obviously being Marten last... No, hang on.
Yuri Kulin, I think we're looking at. And now
yeah.
this is Justus in the navy suit. So that in the white suit there, that's Yuri Kulin just going up, having gone round that U-turn, and then it's Justus Nieschlag just behind him.
All right, well, speaking of Yuri Kulin, let's hear from last year's winner on how winning a T100 race transformed his season.
Last year I was a wild card, so every race I had to attack and try to get the maximum result possible. Now it's the same. I want to get the maximum result possible, but I was not guaranteed the races. So I knew I had to be good at the beginning of the season to get myself into the Tour, which I did. Now, with the knowledge of me having a contract, making a lot easier to plan ahead and have a very good, stable, structured racing plan and season plan ahead. So I'm more relaxed now. But on the other hand, yeah, it's been one of the most amazing days I had in my career. And basically one of the most amazing days I had in my life so far. So yeah, it would be bad to have bad feelings towards this race. But yeah, it comes with a cost, and I think I paid that.
We hear Yuri there say it came at a cost, and we've all seen those infamous shots of him on the floor at the end of this race last year. I mean, how hard did he have to go? How deep did he have to go last year to win?
I mean, he provided us with one of the most mind-blowing performances when he was out here. It was absolutely amazing to see him kind of go out there, dominate the field on the bike already, and then just put on a show for the run. To be honest, Vicky, what do you feel? I mean, he says he's more relaxed having a contract, whereas, again, it was a fantastic performance, but it was an outlier performance. We haven't seen him come near this before or since. How would you feel about that as an athlete?
Well, I think what you can't underestimate when you don't have a contract is that fight, that scrap to try and get one, and that motivation that drives you on. And a lot of our wildcards last year and already in the women's race we saw yesterday are just fighting for their lives. They just want a contract, and so that kind of drives them on a little bit. You never want to become complacent as an athlete, but sort of go back to your point, Matt, about how hard he went. I very much wonder whether he was in just fantastic shape coming here, and that what they took out of him by going as deep as he did in the race and ending up in hospital and having, you know, severe heat stroke. I wonder if that just affected him for the whole rest of the season, and we never got to see Yuri back at his best again, because it really can affect you for months, sometimes even years, if you have that kind of episode happen to you. So I'd be fascinated to see whether this year he's found some of that form that we saw here last year.
We can see pictures of him crossing the line last year. I called them infamous, and we all know why, because he ended up unfortunately leaving the finish line with a lot of help and ended up in hospital.
Yeah, and he says he obviously doesn't remember this at all. Just barely a step over that finish line was in it, Jan, before he just flat on his back.
And it shows you how amazing the mental power is, right? The magic of winning a T100 just carrying you so far beyond where you actually thought you could go, which is something that we're, you know, could be seeing from this man right here on screen. Rico back on screen, and it looks like he's created a gap already.
He's gone on his own, isn't he?
On his new weapon of a bike. He's obviously changed bike sponsors over the winter, done a lot of aerodynamic testing, and
he's changed coaches as well this winter.
True.
So he's got a whole kind of new setup going on this year.
You're missing the most important thing. He got married.
And of course he got married over the winter, so whole new look for Rico Bogan this year, and so far it seems to be doing him pretty well.
So
he is, 20 seconds up.
Yeah, interesting fact about Rico and his coach. Hang on. Hang on, I lost
Philip
my train of thought. Yeah, absolutely. Philip Sipe, who's who's also the coach of Laura Philipp, of course. And they have a very wholesome approach to training.
look at things very individually. And I think that's going to be very, very interesting for him throughout the season, because he's getting, I think, what is probably the most holistic approach in terms of training and a mental preparation that is available out there. And I think very handsome for, or handy rather, for a young athlete like him.
Well, when I saw him at breakfast the other day, he said to me, I'm actually just building into the season, you know. I said, oh, you're going to prove to us once again that you can really do it in the heat. And he sort of smiled, said, yeah, you know, I've done the preparation, but I am coming into this knowing that it's a long season and I want to build through it. Well, if this is going to be how he's going to attack the races in the first one, I dread to think what we're going to see when he does, in fact, or rather I'm excited to see what he does when he builds into this season.
One of the youngest athletes as well in the field. He's only 24. And as we were saying yesterday, some people come to middle distance a bit later on in their career, the likes of Flora Duffy, but some choose it earlier. And this is all getting very tight for Yuri Kulin going down the middle. It's a bit of a Formula One move. It's not till later in the year, Yuri.
Well, they are meant to pass on that left-hand side there, but Jelle Geens, I think because they were going around a corner, had cut really close over to the left, so there wasn't much room. So it did get a bit close there, didn't it?
Carrying a lot of momentum up that hill on the Benjamin Shears Bridge. Goodness me, he's overtaken about three? Is that three athletes he's overtaken?
He's certainly finding his form, because he's come out with a slight deficit from the swim and he's moved himself well into that pack. And similar to last year, actually, where he sort of was sitting back for a little bit, and then in the later stages of the bike was kind of when he made his move and when he came forward.
So Rico Bogan leading us 26 seconds at the last count, out in front of Koolhaas and then Mika Noot in third. Vincent Louis, who led us out the swim, he's in fourth, and last year's T100 World Champion Marten Van Riel in fifth.
Yeah, not much separation at all in that group behind, although getting eyes on now, is that Max Stapley? Or possibly, no, Mika, that was Mika Noot. So Mika's taken a little bit of a march off the front there too.
And a really good visual cue here on just how close all those athletes are. They are pretty much 20 metres, one by one by one, all the way down. One of the great things about this course is seeing the out and back section, and Rico Bogan at the front will have a very, very good understanding of how far back everyone is. But we're still, I said it, you know, we had 16, didn't we, coming out the second transition zone, all within a minute, and that's now, you know, it's dropped slightly to 12, but goodness me, 12 athletes all within a minute of the lead.
And the scary thing is here, if you're going the other way and you're seeing Rico Bogan in his aero position, he's in the full tuck, going full speed, you know, not only are you going the other way, you've got to slow down to roughly probably 15, 20k per hour, and then do a real surge to get back onto pace. That's a long way behind. If you're sitting, you know, in 10th place here, again, 200 meters is a long gap to close when, you know, you're going pretty much flat out already.
Might be a good idea just to have a look at Rico on the bike here and just get some feedback from you, Jan. And for those watching maybe who aren't that familiar with a TT bike, maybe those who are looking at doing a triathlon this year and are eyeing up a fancy bit of kit, give us a rundown of what makes a TT bike so special.
So what you can see, that's changed very much over the last few years, and I was one of the athletes who never managed to adopt this kind of position. It's very far reached forward. You can see the angle and the base bar just underneath that Canyon logo. That is making sure that the athlete can get even further forward, can get his back as flat as possible. And it's obviously got aero bottles and a disc setup. I can't quite tell which brand that is, but the whole point is you see the extension at the back, which means you want to have something that's as long as possible in order for the biggest aerodynamic benefit. He's got a bottle between his arms, again, to close the aerodynamic kind of gap that would be created. Athletes are no longer allowed to put something down their top, which is a trend for a little bit. And here we have that chainring we were talking about earlier. I'm guessing this would be a size 58 tooth. He's only got one, so not having a front derailleur on there and only having 12 gears. And
yeah, only 4 of the bikes racing today are actually still riding a double chainring. Everybody else is on single.
Which is interesting, because if there is a course to ride double chainring, then this would be it.
But both, well, Kate Woff only rode a single yesterday. Jess Limott had a double. I know Flora Duffy had a single as well. So yeah, it's interesting that the trend seems very much to have gone over to that now.
And that's funny, because the aerodynamic benefit is quite minimal. I mean, it doesn't weigh that much, but it's definitely a trend that's been set and that everyone seems to follow it.
And some people might remark that you've got aero bottles. Every single part of this piece of machinery is engineered, isn't it, to be as quick and to be as aerodynamically efficient as possible.
Well, he's got an aerodynamic bottle in his frame triangle. The other 2 bottles are not aerodynamic.
They're not aerodynamic.
They're mainly big, and that's what you kind of want here. There's a lot of fluid, so if you add that up, those look like 1-liter bottles, which means that he's carrying 2.5 liters of fluids by himself for an 80k bike. And that would be, again, fuel as well as hydration, because I think his cooling and water he would mainly look to get from the aid stations. Let's see if they've got stickier hands than the ladies yesterday, but in these kind of conditions, we've learned that it's pretty tough.
I should say that that's Jelle Geens we're watching at the moment, so obviously he's only raced 1 T100 race so far, but one race, 1 win.
Decent record.
Pretty good record so far. He's also the current 70.3 World Champion as well, so he stepped up to middle distance after the Olympics last year, did his final Olympic campaign in Paris, and then decided he wanted to fully focus on this. Change coaches as well, and so far that seems to be working really well for him. He's already raced this season, he's won that race too, so we know he comes in here as one of, if not the favourite.
Well, he's on an incredible run of races. So it started with winning the T100 in Vegas, so he won that. He then won the 70.3 World Championships in Topple at the back end of last year. He then already won this year at 70.3, and that was in Geelong. And we did see a lot in the women's race yesterday, didn't we? Those who had already raced in 2025 looked really good.
Yeah, it did seem to come with a distinct advantage. And you often find that first race of the year, or I definitely did, I don't know about you, Jan, when I would come to my first race, I would definitely use it to sort of blow some cobwebs away. It was just really hard to replicate that in training. So I do think the ones who've already raced might feel a bit more sprightly out there on the course.
Let's be very honest, when you and I raced, the first race of the year was also not as stacked as any World Championship. That is something that we probably haven't seen since or haven't seen before the T100, where everyone comes together, especially for the first race.
You'd always want it to be low-key when your first one, just as a bit of a hit-out.
Well, not low-key, I don't think that necessarily, but you'd have maybe 3-4 other strong athletes that would be in contention for a win. Whereas here,
just me then.
It's pretty much, 15 of these gentlemen who are here to win.
Fascinating insight into both of the starts of your seasons and the different ways that both of you would have approached the start of the season. We were discussing yesterday, weren't we, how it has changed significantly, how the season is now a lot longer. The fact that these T100 athletes will be going all the way down to Qatar at the beginning, or middle, I should say, of December. So it's a long, long season, and they might be doing a few other races in between here as well.
Well, we call it the race to Qatar, but it's really a marathon to Qatar. I mean, it's a long season, especially for what these athletes are normally used to.
So eyes on there on Jelle Geens, sitting in 5th position. But the T100 isn't just about the pro athletes. Thousands of amateurs are going to race the 100 distance across the season and across the world. Come and join us.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no else, yeah, I got away. I watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Running the game now. Foot on the gas, can slow down. No. Yeah, I got away. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Watch the game change, yeah.
And entry is currently open for London and Vancouver. So if you like what you're seeing, find your race at T100triathlon.com or scan the QR code there to register for the London T100.
So we are back with Rico Bogan at the front of the race, and he's got his lead up to around 30 seconds now. So just yo-yoing around that 30-second point ahead of both Mika Newt and Hayden Wilde, and they've got a tiny gap then on Menno Koolhaas and Jelle Geens. Marten Van Riel just tucked in there as well. So, I mean, we're still at the early point of this race. They're coming about a quarter of the way through the ride now, are they? And Marten Van Riel still hanging tough in there.
In terms of the pace that we're seeing and the fact that we do have quite a condensed pack, quite different to the race yesterday, are there going to be people in this pack who are going to be wanting to push the pace, who are going to want to take a bit of a chance and go out in front and see what they can do? Or do you think some of them are just going to be quite happy to sit here and wait for the run and back themselves?
Well, I don't know. Rico Bogan is definitely making a name for himself, and he's definitely showing that he's unpredictable in terms of, you know, what people are expecting of him, which actually means he's quite predictable because he's very good all the time. He hasn't won one of these, but the fact is he's had a whole winter to get over what was his deemed weakness, which is extreme humidity and warm conditions. And he's just slowly but surely building a solid lead. And I wouldn't want to give him too much of it, even if I was sitting in the back of the pack, because with 20 meters of a draft zone, which realistically has to be more like 22 or 25, you're not getting that much benefit, and you are getting the surging of the pack, which Rico doesn't need to worry about. He's very consistently able to put out his power and get himself in the ideal spot.
With him being such a young athlete as well, at only 24 years old, he is more likely to make bigger gains over the winter than some of these older athletes because he still hasn't fully developed yet. There is so much room for him to go. He's simply been doing this level of triathlon less years than a lot of the people he's competing against. So he is likely, and it's very possible that he's made a big improvement over this winter, and the athletes that he's racing against won't know that, won't have seen that. And so yeah, he's got to be a danger athlete for them. They've got to keep an eye on that gap.
Gotta love the facial expressions, though, that he's always giving us, right? I mean, Kyle and I were looking at him at the swim start, and we were literally like, it looks like he's suffering already.
What, they hadn't even got in yet?
He hadn't even got in yet. He was just pouring a bit of water over himself as he showered after the warm-up. And he's just such an expressive athlete, but at the same time, that's his poker face. You just don't know. He always looks like it, and he seems to be able and want to go to the well.
Where would you have pitched yourself, Jan, on the scale of poker face to how you were really feeling inside?
I had to fake it a fair few times in my career. That's part of the game you got to play. You know, it's kind of, that's why we wear sunglasses most of the time. It's not because it's sunny. It's just to make sure we hide our eyes.
But even in the heat of battle, you're thinking that much ahead, and you've got the mental capacity to go, hold on a minute, I don't want to show my competitors how much I'm hurting.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody's hurting. And so whether you believe that you're alone in this or whether everyone else thinks that you just look good, that is a definite mental advantage. As we get images of Vincent Louis, who's got even more fluids on the bike. So there are 3 large bottles plus an aerodynamic bottle in between his arms.
He's taking no chances in the heat today, is he?
No, that silver reflective front end cockpit that he's got. I know he's done a lot of testing.
Look at that helmet as well, hey?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a pretty fancy look there.
He does, but the bike, again, was deemed one of his weaknesses pre-season. It's something that he's worked on, and I think he's done extremely well so far to stay in real contention here.
He's had a brilliant short course career, we know that. He's at, he's a Tokyo Olympic mixed relay bronze medalist. He did that back in 2021. And he's now decided to make his way fully onto the middle distance. He's decided to commit to the middle distance.
I would say those bottles at the back are bouncing a lot. We've got Hayden Wilde going to the front of that pack, trying to make a move. They've put a bit of time back, and I think they're starting to realize Rico Bogan is not someone you want to let up the road.
He's too dangerous for them to give, 30 seconds, because the depth of this men's field is, well, it's exciting for us to watch, but it is unbelievable. And you give one of these athletes 30 seconds into T2, and that could be it. That could be the difference. So, yeah, Hayden Wilde leading the charge there. Looks like he's trying to take that on. and try and bridge his way back up to Rico.
Hayden obviously being very used to chasing hard at something that gave him a lot of frustration. I think that, you know, the gestures we saw early on the bike are probably an expression of that, where he was always complaining during his Olympic days, complaining, I mean, in the broad sense of the word, that he was doing a lot of the work. And, you know, let's hope that he's just tired of coming second. I mean, that is something that can be a lot of fuel, and he is a phenomenal athlete and definitely someone who sees himself winning.
He's also a really, really aggressive racer. That's just how he is. He's done it in short course for years, even in the middle distance races that we have seen him do already. He does exactly that. He's not afraid to go out too hard, and he almost says that's his biggest weakness, that he needs to learn to just hold back a tiny bit. We saw him do it at the 70.3 World Champs last year, where he went out way too hard, in his own words, on the run and blew up with about 6 kilometers left to go. And yeah, he needs to learn to control that aggressive racing streak that he's got and be a little bit more conscious of his pacing.
So eyes on Vincent Louis, just ahead of, I think that's Antonio Benito Lopez, just there. So Vincent Louis out in front, and we can hear from his coach. He's down in the transition zone with Alex.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, we're going to come on to Vincent in just a moment or two. But Benoit, first of all, you raced this morning. Let's get into that. How was it?
Yeah, I did race this morning. It was the third time racing in Singapore, and this year was hot again, but it was amazing. It's an amazing venue, an amazing series. I'm super happy to finish fourth in my category this morning. So yeah, it was amazing.
Congratulations to that. And just give us a bit of an insight into your friendship with Vincent. Where did that come about, and how long have you known him?
So I know Vincent through his first coach, Alexandre, back in 2012. They were training. He was training him for the London Olympic Games, and then I met Vincent in 2019 for the Super League back in Sentosa in Singapore. That's how I met Vincent, and now we just text each other. We're friends. Yeah.
And you live out here, I'm right in saying. You've been here for 8 years, you were just saying. So a little bit of insider training, really. Have you been helping him with conditions and how to make the most of today?
Yeah, I live in Singapore for the last 8 years. I'm a triathlon coach, actually. So yeah, I know the conditions. And as you could see yesterday, it was super hot, and then the storm came. So yeah, just making sure he has hydration into plan. And he's a professional. He's a 2-time world champion, so he knows what to do. But yeah, just reminding him the specifics of Singapore.
And what do you make of how he's getting on today?
Yeah, he had an amazing swim. This is the first T100 race for Vincent, but he has a phenomenal experience. And when Vincent is lining up for a race, it's to make a podium or to win it.
And can you give us a bit of insight into why the change towards the T100 now at this stage of his career? Why has he decided to go for it at this point?
I think he talked a lot about that in the past, but yeah, he was a phenomenal racer on the short distance, and now he's the most experienced, the older on the course. So I think it was time for a change and do something new, and the T100 is amazing for his capabilities, so yeah.
And obviously you've already banked a fourth today. Congratulations again for that. Does he have to come higher in order to avoid paying for the drinks, or is it 50-50 tonight?
We'll see.
We'll see. Good on you. You're a proper friend to him. Well done, Benoit. Thanks so much for chatting to us. Thank you.
Great insight there from his good friend down in the transition area. And I was going to say, one of the things actually that Vincent Louis said when he made his commitment to the middle distance was he said that the short course guys are now just too fast for him. And I thought that was a very honest assessment of where they were.
Yeah, Vince has said for a couple of years now that he isn't getting slower, but the short course guys are getting faster, and he just hasn't been able to go with that. He also knows that the speed is what kills you, especially the older you get. It makes you more injury prone. So no, he's excited to take on middle distance now.
Well, let's hear from the man himself alongside Yuri Kulin, friends away from triathlon and maybe touted as the odd couple. Here's how they spend their spare time.
I really love to cook. My dad is chef, and if I have time, which is mostly in off-season, my girlfriend is living for 3 weeks in a restaurant. Like, I really try to, if I make meatballs,
That's
try to make the most amazing meatballs. No, mate, we have butter, we can't leave each other anymore. sometimes you go with young athletes on training camps and they eat for 4 weeks pasta with red sauce. Well, you can make so much nice things from just a little bit of veg, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbs, a little bit of everything. And sometimes I miss that as a triathlete. Your day is so full every single day, every single week that eating is such an important part in your recovery and in your preparation for your next session that sometimes you kind of forget to make it fun or to kind of forget to eat enough. And I really would see myself doing something like that.
I don't know, if watching YouTube is a talent, I'm really good at it. And no, the thing that my girlfriend's quite mad, I own a lot of shoes. Like I have a lot of pair of shoes and it's really annoying.
I think your hobby is more fashion, isn't it?
Yeah,
like you want to look good.
I do like this. I have actually on my phone. I think you can save these tabs on your browser.
Yeah.
I think I have 176 tabs of things I want to buy, and it's all clothes. So yeah, that's not a talent. Don't do that at home, kids.
I think it's a good job they've got triathlon in common. I'm not sure what else they do.
Yeah, that was. I think they both sort of were past each other's head there, but I can confirm that Vincent Louis has redefined his wine cellar as a sneaker cellar, and he collects sneakers.
He likes collectibles, doesn't he?
Yeah,
like really
he
special ones.
And I had no idea, but there is a stock exchange for sneakers, and that's where Vincent Louis actually trades some of these special pairs. It's all dependent on size and model and rarity, and he was explaining this whole thing to me, and I was like, dude, how do you do this? I mean,
it's
we
a different
train 40
world,
hours
isn't
a
it?
week. And you got physio, you got all these things going on, and he just, has a cellar of sneakers.
We saw him yesterday or day before, didn't we, Vicky? Out of the front of the hotel in I think you can only describe it as like a flamingo romper.
I think it was a shirt and shorts, but it was definitely what we might call a co-ord or Vincent might in the fashion world. But it was quite special, that's for sure.
Now that David House has retired, Vincent Louis is definitely the coolest kid in triathlon.
You heard it here first. So eyes on Rico Bogan at the front of the race. He's built up a 31-second lead at the last count ahead of Hayden Wilde. Mikanuk just tucked in behind, the German in third. And let's have a discussion maybe about this technical part of the course where you're going around those corners with such, well, you're trying to go through as quick as possible, right? But how do you enable yourself to get around those corners as quickly as possible?
So the trick is to get your center of gravity low, so you want to make sure that you get your chest as close to your aero bars as possible. The other thing, what you can see here on Rico's bike especially, is those rubber bands that hold his bottles in place. So what happens, there's a little bit of construction there on the course, which is obviously normal when you go through a big city. There are a lot of bumps and kind of gullies that you go over. And he's secured his bottles with a rubber band to make sure that he avoids a littering penalty, but also can keep his nutrition on board. And that's really what you want to make sure, that you don't make mistakes through those kind of things. You want to be too aggressive. Sometimes there's still, even though they've swept the course and somebody's gone over there with a fine toothbrush and cleaned everything up, there can still be a little bit of dust, and you just don't want to slide out in the front wheel. We saw it in the women's race yesterday, which was actually because of a puncture, not a technical kind of, well, it was a technical error, yeah. And the tricky thing here is you come out of that kind of technical zone and straight into the next bridge where you want to have as much momentum as possible. So it's a catch-22.
Good graphic there we've got at the bottom of the screen, just showing us the really big movers on the bike so far have been Gregory Barnaby moving up 14 places, Mikanuk moving up 10, and Hayden Wilde moving up 7. So as we saw yesterday, big moves on the bike. We expected that. We didn't expect the order to stay exactly the same as it was out of the swim, but yeah, just showing again how this course mixes things up.
Well, Rico Bogan finished third last year, and just like last season across the year, athletes are going to be competing to become the T100 World Champion. But who will finish first this year in the race to Qatar?
We have a race on our hands.
Brand new race for us in Qatar at the end of the year. Looking forward to that one. A long way to go, though, between now and then. And a good chance to look at Hayden Wilde on the bike. Jan, what's catching your eye?
His aerodynamic gloves. I obviously missed the first part of the broadcast. I'm not sure if you've seen them. He had them on very early. Interesting choice. I don't think I've ever seen that before in a T100 or any other long distance race, really. You can see he's obviously worked hard on his aerodynamics, those bottles between his chest and closing any kind of gaps that you could find in order to attach the wind flow as long as possible. And the matching gloves to go with it. Very interesting, because they'd be tricky to put on after the swim. But I saw he had them on very soon, so maybe they were tucked into his swimsuit or something like that. Interesting.
It's curious, isn't it? Because in the transition zone, you're always looking to make it as fast as possible. Here in Singapore, there is an element, isn't there, where actually if you take a few extra seconds, work on it, make sure you're there and you've got cooling, you've got everything in order, it actually could save you time maybe further on in the bike.
It could be, and the thing is those gains are so theoretical, right? Because what you test in a wind tunnel is negated as soon as one of even the zips or anything moves ever so slightly, right? When it's perfectly positioned in a wind tunnel, that can get you a saving of X. But having the swimming element makes it impossible to have that suit fitting exactly as it should. We can see sometimes athletes don't have their sleeves all the way down, they're still slightly rolled up. All these kind of things happen because you're moving more than you ever would in a time trial race. And that is obviously unique to a triathlon. Seems to be working for Hayden though, because he has broken away from that gap, from that group. You can see he's now the only one sort of holding a similar and steady pace to Rico within, let's call it a 30-second gap. And has built himself, you know, a 10, 15-second gap to the group behind. He wants to make sure he stays aggressive and stays in contention.
Looking at his season ahead, obviously he finished second in Paris over the summer of 2024, got that Olympic silver medal. But Vicky, in terms of that rivalry with Alex Yee, both of them are off to do different things this year, aren't they? Alex Yee is off to run in the London Marathon, which he's doing in a couple of weeks' time, and Hayden Wilde's on the T100. How do you see that rivalry evolving over the next few years, given they're sort of on different paths right now?
I think that what they're both doing right now is really classic of sort of post-Olympic year racing. People like to go and pursue different ventures, you know, the Olympic cycle, I term as a bit of a rat race. You are in this process of constantly having to earn points, keep ranking, try and perform well at the races, get yourself selected, get to the Olympics, and it's incredibly draining. And then the sort of the 4-year cycle starts again. And this year post-Olympics is the one where you can afford to be a little bit more experimental, I guess, in your choices and go and pursue other projects. And Hayden's someone who has done quite a bit of middle distance racing across his career already whenever the opportunity has provided itself. So he wanted to come and do this distance as well. He hasn't been entirely sure how much short course racing he's going to do this season. I wouldn't be surprised if it massively depends on how he does in the first couple of T100 races. If he gets a couple of really good scores on the board, that affords him time to go away and race some short course racing in the middle of the season. But he wants to race this distance right now. He's been very excited to do it. As for Alex, yeah, he's gone off to race the London Marathon, but what I would say is I expect both of those athletes to be back racing short course racing at the LA 2028 Olympics.
Tremendous shots of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, which you certainly cannot miss if you're here in Singapore. Fantastic city, a very green city. We've loved our time here, and you can just see behind the flower dome and the cloud forest dome of the gardens by the bay. I'm going to try and get down there tomorrow, I think.
Certainly a cool city to explore. I've taken a bit of time to see a few of the sites. But I think all these athletes will be thinking of is the fact that all these buildings, the Singapore Flyer, everything around there is nicely air-conditioned, and we are in the full blast of the sun. And even a touch of shade makes such a difference on a day like today. It really is tremendous.
So here we are on the bike course. They have got 9 laps of this undulating, if not hilly bike course, with a couple of out and back sections. They take in a lot of the sights, the Benjamin Shears Bridge and the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, back into T2, out on the run. It goes all the way along the Marina Bay front, around the Marina Barrage at the far end. They've got 3 laps, 6K each, totaling 18 kilometres.
Yeah, it's a tremendous course, both all of the elements, as we see Rico Bogan get a bottle, potentially at the 5th time of asking there. We saw quite a few drop yesterday, but a course that definitely takes in all the sights of Singapore, of which there are many.
Making sure he gets some ice water, and he's really not using any of that to fuel or to drink. I think most of this is just to cool him down. You can see he's still got a bottle of his own in the front, and then at the back he's got a spare bottle that he's picked up, so you can tell that by being in the T100 colors, a white bottle with a sort of green turquoisey top, and that tells you that it's an athlete who's picked up water and has either gone through his nutrition or perhaps lost the bottle, as we saw earlier.
What's interesting to me right now is the time gap. It's actually going out. So we saw Hayden Wilde go to the front of that line of athletes, start to break away from them, and looked like he was going to be the one to try and charge Rico Bogan down. But so far, that hasn't come to fruition. And if anything, that gap is going out. Just on the most recent time check there, we've got 43 seconds between Rico Bogan and Hayden Wilde. So right now, Rico is still fastest out on course.
Yeah, and that gap in general really is being stretched out across the field. If you remember, we had 12 athletes at the last count, all within a minute when we spoke about that around 15 minutes ago, and now there's actually only 4 of the athletes within a minute.
Yeah, notably, look, Vincent Louis, who is holding it around a minute, is now down 2 minutes 40 as well. So that's not been a great couple of kilometres there for Vincent. We didn't see if anything happened. We assumed it didn't, but we can't be sure.
So a first look this afternoon at Matthias Bergere, and ranked 4th on the T100 rankings. He had a good season last year, a couple of good results, 3rd in Miami, the best, 5th in Dubai at the end of last year, finished 7th overall in the standings of the T100. He raced 5 times, so we saw him a fair amount on the T100. What do you like about what you see with Matthias Bergere, Jan?
He's a very strong bike rider, and he's a very consistent athlete. He's somebody who's really worked on himself over the years. I still had the pleasure of racing against him, or rather was faced with the pain of trying to follow his wheel. He is a very strong rider, especially on his good days. He's been out here for a week, I believe, a little over a week even, preparing for the heat. Come from home, and he's somebody who's really dedicated himself to this race to Qatar. He wants to be the next world champion, get on the podium as often as he can, and I think he's bringing a lot of the qualities, which is, you know, a consistency that's going to be needed over a 9-race season.
Yeah, he's really become a name of our series, hasn't he? Super consistent, Matisse, and I know he did his preparations for this by, as you said, coming out a week early, but on top of that, he did at-home heat chamber preparation, which a lot of our athletes did. And it essentially is based around the sort of philosophy that you've got to get your body hot and keep it hot over a period of sort of 45 minutes or more. And you've got to raise that core temperature by a couple of degrees, and then, yeah, just try and hold it there. And Matisse, like some of our other athletes, did that in his own bathroom. You can do that by putting heaters in there. You just put the shower on. That increases the humidity. And so it doesn't have to be super fancy. It's definitely not glamorous. It's one of the more soul-destroying sessions you can do, sweating it out in your own bathroom, looking at yourself in the mirror. But it is necessary to be able to take on these conditions and for your body to adapt as well as it needs to.
Vicky, tell me about the worst heat session you used to do.
All of them, honestly. I've never come as close to quitting as I have done in heat chambers in the past. I like to think I'm not an angry or snappy person, but I did snap at our physiologist once in the heat chamber, in the proper heat chamber, not the bathroom. And I think everyone knew I was at the end of my tether when that happened. But yeah, just being in there, time seems to stand still. You know, you think, oh, I've been told I only need to stay in here for 45 minutes once I get my core temperature up. And that every minute seems to be about 5 minutes in the normal world when you're in the heat chamber or the heat bathroom, as it might have been for me. So yeah, those you never really want to do much hard stuff in there. You're not going in there to do quality sessions. You don't need to. You can if you want to, but that's a bit of a risk, because really all you're trying to do is get the physiological response of being hot, and you don't need to go hard to do that. You just need to get hot. So trying to combine the two is possible, but a bit more risky.
It's not an exact science, is it, heat prep either? We've seen so many different methods across athletes, both in the men's and the women's, people doing lots of different methods of doing it. What works for you, Jan, in terms of heat prep?
I mean, for the big races, I always prefer to get into the actual environment. Much of it for me was also in the days before, really making sure I get in the mental space, you know, kind of sleeping without air conditioning, all those things that are probably not an exact science, or definitely not an exact science, but really getting myself also prepared for the fact that a heat race is similar to racing at altitude. I mean, Vicky, you spoke to it. It was an experiment that, you know, some athletes have done and played with in terms of going to heat chambers and the altitude.
I did both, yeah. I did the bathroom heat chamber at altitude, which was, I guess, risky, trying to do both of them, because it's two stresses on the body. But you know, I was pretty fit when I got there, so it was a build into my major race of the season, and so that's what we went for, and paid off pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The problem is that, especially now with the T100 racing, you somehow have to compensate, and that is normally done by intensity, because you can't go the high intensity that's needed. And these athletes here, I mean, on the ridges, they'd be putting out well in excess of 400 watts going up the climbs, and that's extremely hard to do at both altitude and heat for a prolonged amount of time. Interesting here, we see Marten Van Riel always going on his base bars whenever he goes down, and when he's in his aero position, that front end looks very shaky, and it looks, yeah, it's very strange, because this is where you want to be tucked in, this is where you want to be fast, like he's going now, but he doesn't have the confidence in his front end to do it when he's going down.
We'll keep an eye on Marten Van Riel out on the course, but for now, let's head down to the transition zone, and Alex is with Kyle Smith.
Yes, indeed, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. Just to bring those of you who are comfortably sitting in an air-conditioned commentary booth with your feet up on the table, enjoying a cold drink and just kicking back and watching everyone else go to work, I cannot tell you how hot it is out here right now. It's like being in an oven. You commented just as we walked out. As the clouds part, it goes up. For someone who comes from the UK, this is probably warm. Just tell us how this would be affecting you on the bike right now.
Yeah, on the bike, it's going to be super hard, especially when you're going up those steep ramps. You know, those ramps go up to 12%, so you're going pretty slow and there's no breeze to cool you down. And so, yeah, it just gets so overwhelmingly hot on the bike, and especially, you know, you're pushing really hard. You want to find that fine line, but you've also got to get off the bike in about, 40 kilometers time and head out into the run, and you have that in the back of your mind as well.
You were talking actually before we came on air about what this heat does to your power levels, but I want to ask you about a different set of lights. Race Ranger. Everybody's got their view, everyone is a critic, everyone knows how to be doing it, regardless of whether they're out there or not. But as someone who is actively in the moment, tell us how much of a focus Race Ranger is for you, and I suppose the complexities of having to navigate those lights.
Yeah, look, we saw in the first couple of laps, it was absolutely carnage out there, and we saw so many red lights flashing. It's so hard to get the balance right, because you think you're going to come off that hill at 80, 90 kilometers an hour. So you imagine going down the motorway, going 50 miles an hour, and the car 4 ahead of you slams on. You're going to end up, concertinaing and really pushing up. And once that light goes red, you have to make the pass, which is in the rules. but you might have 4 or 5 guys ahead of you that you have to pass. So it's that real balance. So I adopted the technique of just not having any light. So you're actually sitting at 25 meters, but that leaves the door open for one of your competitors behind to come in and pass. So it's really finding that fine line. And, you know, I think the referees out there have to make some, you know, discretion and some decisions. And I think they're pretty good here, and they can kind of see who's, you know, really pushing it a little bit to the boundary, and some who is just accidentally they're hitting the lights.
It is such a hot topic. Are you a fan of Race Ranger?
I love Race Ranger, yeah. I think it's really good for the sport, and it's also really good for us to just take your mind off it, because the last thing you want is a penalty that's going to ruin your chances of, you know, being a world champion or winning the race. So you want to have that just no subjectivity, just absolute black or white, well, red or not red, and yeah, so that's the good thing about it, and it allows people to just take that guessing game out, because the referees are also trying to guess too without it. So now it's not a guessing game, they can use their discretion a little bit, and yeah, I think it's awesome.
And as for the race itself, who has caught your eye?
Yeah, look, Rico's really taking the bull by the horns now, and obviously he's really commanding it. But as we saw with Jess Liam yesterday, it's a risky tactic to really try and you know, get out there and get after it on the bike, because you've still got to run for over an hour out there. And so yeah, Hayden and Jelle, obviously, being in that second group is really interesting. I think we've got a really good run battle on our hands. And yeah, Matisse obviously really just trying to bring that gap back to Rico Bergere.
Brilliant. Fantastic insight. Thank you very much indeed, Kyle. And from the furnace in transition to those of you back in commentary enjoying your ice creams, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I was hoping you might break into a version of YMCA there, but sadly that didn't happen. We are, rest assured, nice and cool up here in the commentary box. And yes, I don't feel too. I think he's going to go sit in VIP, isn't he?
Trust the Brit to complain about the weather. I mean, honestly, he's going back to rain and darkness. So
I don't feel too sorry for him.
I think you should just enjoy it.
I agree. He's going to be in the VIP zone. But it is worth mentioning that the air temperature out there at the start of the race today was just shy of 34 degrees, with also the extreme humidity that we know we face here. So, you know, these athletes have it hot, and I think the sun has been out more today than it was yesterday for the women's race. So I think it's actually even hotter for them. Now, stop talking about the weather and get back to the race. And we've obviously got Mika Newt in front of us here, so he's riding in 4th position at the moment. He's another one of our young athletes still, really, but he's already done pretty special things so far. He was 3rd, I think, at our T100 Ibiza last year. That was his only podium of the season, but he raced pretty well here. I think he was 6th last year here in Singapore. I know he wanted a little bit more on the day, so he's put himself in a good position so far in this race.
Yeah, he said the last kilometre was the hardest of his life. And I mean, when you've had that experience of a race jam and you're going back to it the next year, you know, don't you, just how deep you're going to have to dig.
Yeah, and he was quite disappointed when he came to the finish line. You know, he obviously wasn't quite together, but he really, really suffered on those last few kilometers, gave up a few spots. But here he is, he's racing a white race suit, which is always brave. He's got white wall tires, which always look fantastic on a bike, if I may say so. Well, that's what I think anyways. And he's positioned
We'll ask
himself
Vincent Louise, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
our fashion man.
Vincent, who, as we can see on the leaderboard on the left here, has lost a significant amount of time. We saw him go backwards on the bridge, which was the last shot that we got of him. And I have a feeling he's in for a long day. But Mika is someone who prepares really, really well. He's come here early. He had a homestay that he's been preparing with. And he knows his weakness. And that's, you know, he's someone who wants more all the time. And I think that's the trait of a truly great athlete in the making.
Interesting as well that he's so young. Another one. Our 2 German athletes right at the front of this race are both only 24 years old. That is incredibly young. And I said it earlier, it just means that you've got to keep an eye on them, because they are likely to keep improving and in bigger chunks and in bigger margins than maybe some of those other athletes might do.
Well, I think Mika started a trend of a triple pizza night. He's infamous for eating horrendous amounts of calories. I mean, this guy's got a metabolism of a lab rat. I think he just goes absolutely crazy. As we see Wilde closing the gap to Rico Bergere. Wow.
That has come down
a wholehearted
so quickly, hasn't it?
It was sort of doing nothing, and then all of a sudden he's pounced, doesn't he? And he's brought that gap down, now only 6 seconds behind Rico.
And I think we're going to see more of that because we're barely over halfway here. And I can guarantee you that the last 2 laps of the bike, things are going to get exaggerated. Margins are going to blow out. And so far, great pacing from Hayden.
So interesting, he's chosen potentially to get up pretty close on the uphill because they want to make sure he doesn't get a penalty here. That's going to be harder for him to do, but now they're on the downhill going off the Benjamin Shears Bridge here in Singapore. And he looks like he is comfortable 20 meters behind.
That still looks like a really decent distance there. I don't think he's got too much to worry about there, but given he was a little bit frustrated, wasn't he, at the beginning of the bike section with being bunched up behind other athletes and finding it hard to make his way through, he'll definitely be a bit more comfortable being a bit closer to the front.
Choosing to freewheel there just to get back some of the energy that he's obviously expanded to close that gap.
One of the more interesting quotes, I thought, from Hayden pre-race was that he said, "I'm either going to absolutely smash it or blow my gasket off."
That's Hayden. That is Hayden in an absolute nutshell. Hayden either wins the race or he blows up, and he took really big gambles in 2024. He wanted to win everything he did. He had big ambitions, big goals. He wanted to be the Olympic champion. He wanted to win 70.3 Worlds, and he went all in on both of those races. And he blew up both times, and it cost him 2 gold medals. But love to watch the way he races, the way he animates races, the way he is fearless. But maybe in the conditions that we see here, we just need to see a little bit more sensible pacing. And so far, he's done really well. He has slowly but surely made his way right back up to the front of this race. He hasn't blown by Rico and tried to blast off the front. He's just using Rico now as this sort of rabbit up the road to just follow.
Yeah, and it does make a big difference, right? He's somebody who's used to riding in a pack. He's somebody who isn't quite, you know, used to just being out there by himself. And I think for that is an incredible maturity. It does always help to have someone to gauge your kind of efforts off. I know he will be riding to power. He would be riding to numbers. You can see his GPS computer between his arms there. And he, little smile. He's looking good. He's obviously had some recovery in the downhill from that bridge. And cool, calm and collected so far.
Interesting, he's wearing gloves. Haven't seen many of the other athletes wearing gloves there. I'm assuming that's a comfort thing rather than a special cooling glove or something. But yeah, not many of the others doing that.
So back with Mick Anoot, who's got Marten Van Riel in his sights, I believe. That is Marten Van Riel ahead.
That means that Marten Van Riel's overtaken him, and they were a little trio. Mathis Margier has gone off the front, though. Interesting that they are not able to go with the pace of Mathis Margier. Again, this is something where we're going to see pacing and see Rico looking over his shoulder there. Has the man gone too hard, too early?
And that red light is flashing, so Hayden Wilde has to make the move, and he's doing exactly that. He is overtaking Rico Bogan to take the lead here in Singapore.
I love that, just looking over, a little chirpy chat. Again, you know, this is just where you want to make sure the other guy knows that you're in great spirits, no matter what your spirits actually are. You just wanted to know, no, this is easy for me, I'm cruising.
I think both of these athletes, though, would like to work as a bit of a two going forward. They are a pretty powerful combination, both of them. I think they've both got a lot to gain from sort of sharing out a little bit of the lead here and sort of working together. Of course, they've got to maintain that 20 meter gap, obviously just a little bit more than that. But yeah, I think they're going to do a lot better if they actually work together here.
So Hayden Wilde out in front, just overtook Rico Bogan to take the lead here in Singapore. And we can have another look at it because it could be a decisive moment in this race. We saw the Ranger flashing there. He had to make the pass, chose the hill to do it, which is interesting. Rico off the saddle. And Hayden looking very, very good to take first place.
Both athletes on Canyon Speedmax bike, but the setup being quite different, where we can see Rico has got that long extension to give him even more length out the front. Hayden a little bit more traditional, sitting with the elbows a little bit closer to his knees, or sitting on top of the wheel really. And you can see those are the kind of aerodynamic advantages that you try and gain, that you try and find your perfect position where you're fast, but also able to put out power and still be able to run off it.
Interestingly, now you can see that light on the back of Hayden Wilde's bike. That's in a yellow light right now. So that means that Rico Bergere is sat between 20 and 22 meters behind. So perfect. He's now dropped further back. Well, it went off. That meant he was out of that zone. Now it's gone back to that yellow again. So yeah, those lights really helping the athletes to gauge the distance that they are allowed to sit behind.
Yeah, and you spoke to both Hayden and Marten Van Riel. Marten Van Riel at the back end of 2024. Kind of calling Hayden out, wanting him on the T100. He's got his wish. What did you make of that chat with both of them together?
Well, you know, the both of them, they're obviously very committed athletes. At the time, I have to say, Marten Van Riel, he has really pulled a rabbit out of a hat. I did not think we would see him even anywhere near the top 10 at that stage. He had deep eye rings. The fatigue was real. Traveled here from South Africa. And he has pulled himself together. I think he's been drip feeding himself protein shakes just to get into the shape, and absolutely marvelous. You know, I was out there giving him a hard time for it. But once again, I'm happy to be wrong on these kind of occasions. Spite is something that, you know, goes a long way in an athlete. I always say you do it for 98% of the right reason, and 2% is for the, well, R-rated people out there. You know, the people who say you can't do it, and that's the great way. That's what a champion uses to get himself fired up. Hayden really doesn't ever give you that much. He's a great athlete. He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Chill Kiwi.
But he's chilled. You know, he's just like, yep, all right, mate, I'm just going to go. Might blow up, might not, kind of thing.
I'll either blow up or I'll win,
yeah, exactly.
I think is sort of Hayden's attitude, right?
And I think, yeah, he's definitely the people's champion, and somebody we'd love to see get on top of that podium.
Yeah, I really enjoy the fact that Martin sat there at the back end of last year and wanted and sort of reeled off a list of athletes he'd like. He also mentioned Lionel Sanders as well as someone he'd like to see on the T100. You never know, he might just have watched that interview.
Noticing that gap back to Mathis Margerier, Mika Newt is starting to come down a tiny bit. It's about 26 seconds to Mathis. So holding steady really around that 30 seconds, but just dipping under that right now. These two athletes haven't made any more inroads on their competition in the last few kilometers since they became a two.
All right, well, let's get some reaction from the Wild camp. Alex is down with Hayden's mum.
I am indeed. Sarah is alongside. We're just talking about the New Zealand Sevens team, actually, who I think are in action over the road, but we'll come on to that in just a moment or two. But Hayden's mum is your title today, and you were just saying this is one of the first big events you've been to watch Hayden in action. How have you found the whole experience, the emotions and all that sort of thing?
Oh, it's pretty amazing. Not that we've seen a lot of Hayden because he's been training, but it's just awesome to be here to watch him.
And your boy's in front. How's he doing?
It's nothing unusual. He doesn't like to be behind, so yeah, it's not surprising to me to see him wanting to go forward.
Have you had a proper chat with him about his ambitions for this season? Is he sort of talking about, I'm good enough to be champion? Is he taking it each race at a time? Where does he think he's at in this field?
I think it's all very new to him, and he likes to have new adventures. We don't really sort of talk to him about that type of thing because we don't really get to see him or talk to him that often because he's just too hard to track down.
Okay. And tell me about the experience that he had yesterday, I think it was, where he went into the New Zealand Sevens team. Was he more nervous about handing out the jerseys to such a legendary outfit or the start line this morning?
Well, I think he actually passed a comment that it was very different not seeing them in the gym and having to be there presenting something to other iconics in our country. So yeah, no, he thoroughly enjoyed it and thought it was a good honour to do that.
I think the Black Ferns have won the league over the road as well already for the season, so that's good news. Could be a very good weekend for the Kiwis here in Singapore.
Well, rude not to come all this way and take all the wins, wouldn't it?
And there speaks the mum. Lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant bit of content, which I encourage you to check out on the T100 YouTube and social pages. As we see the Singapore Sports Hub in the distance there, that is where the Rugby Sevens is happening this weekend. And Hayden getting to meet the All Blacks the other day, which was fantastic to see.
So I think interesting to mention here something that Hayden Wilde has done a lot of changes throughout his off-season. He's gone from being coached by Craig Kirkwood pretty much forever and has gone to 3 individual coaches. And his bike coach is none other than Javier Sola, who happens to be Tadej Pogacar's cycling coach.
Not bad, hey?
Well, cycling coach, his overall coach.
Pretty good caliber there.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, the man struggles to win a race, and just had a fairy whisper in my ear and tell me, well, that's, you know, kind of where he's made big changes, where he's made big adaptations to get himself ready for the T100 series, and obviously paying off so far.
Yeah, he's also now coached on the run by Gary Lowe. He is Paula Ratcliffe's husband, and you know, she was a pretty good runner. I don't know if you know. And
he's kind of gone and assembled the best of the best.
He really has. He's gone for full 3 individual sport coaches, and he speaks really, really highly of his time with Craig Kirkwood. You know, he doesn't. There's been no bad blood there. He just really wanted to try something a bit different and see if maybe he could squeeze out an extra 1 or 2%. He's often talked about as well how he might go back tail between his legs and say, actually, hey, Craig, we had it right all along. But he just wants to experiment at this point in his career, and I totally understand that. It will also freshen things up for him a little bit, and he got really close to a lot of gold medals last year, and I think he wants to see if he maybe shakes things up a little bit, whether there's a little bit more in the tank, and maybe he could turn that silver into gold.
Yeah, and what's the benefit of having 3 individual coaches, and is it actually a lot of admin for Hayden to keep on top of that, especially because he's not going to live right next to all of them day by day? He's going to rely a lot on messaging and FaceTimes and that sort of thing.
Well, this again shows you what kind of individual sport we're talking about. This is something that was deemed as not working. It was something that was tried in the early days of triathlon.
Just as Rico Bogan has overtaken, sorry to interrupt you, Jan, there,
no,
just
totally.
to say Rico has overtaken Hayden Wilde there, and perhaps a nod to what you were saying, Vicky, at how they might just try and share this one out a little bit and push each other further forward.
Absolutely, gives him a little bit of a rest because he now has to go out of that drafting zone, which you see in the Race Ranger, gone from blue to orange, so he's in the safe zone. But coming back to having 3 individual coaches was something that was deemed to not work. You know, in the early 2000s, that's what a lot of national federations tried. Then sometimes you can have egos from certain coaches involved saying, you know, you bike for show, you run for dough, the old saying, so therefore running's so much more important. But Hayden is such a level-headed guy that I think he seems to manage it well. And if it works to him, all the credits. It just shows you that there is no one-size-fits-all solution in terms of training for anyone.
Just for you, Vicky, 3 coaches ever tempted?
No, I never went for 3 coaches. I had 2 for a period of time, but it just takes a little bit more managing of the situation yourself, and I think that really depends on who you are, what you like, and where you're at in your career. And I know that Hayden has so far said that he really enjoys that. He's got a little bit more control. He can go to each of the coaches and say, hey, I want to focus on this a little bit more now. Can you give me a little bit of a break here? And another athlete who said very similar is Ashley Gentle. Now, we know she didn't have the race that she would have loved to have yesterday, and has since said she just didn't have it. She just felt empty on the day yesterday. But she has now started to have individual coaches across all 3 sports, and she really likes that approach herself as well, because she feels like she just has so much more control and feel over what's going on.
Well, he's looking good so far, is Hayden Wilde. He'll have his eye.
Ooh, lost the bottle there.
Oh,
that
did he?
Was unfortunate.
Did he? Goodness me.
He's just recognized it as well. This is why Rico has those rubber bands on top of his bottle cages, because this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, that this is the kind of technical section of the course where you need to make sure you make no mistakes. Obviously unintentional. I don't think he would be penalized, even though technically it is a littering penalty. But I think they'll show and apply some lenience here because there's obviously no intent.
Another look at it here. Just that little bump, isn't it? Going over there.
Just going over there.
Pops. Yeah.
And what we saw in the earlier pictures is that he was using these bottles, the T100 bottles, very early on,
Yeah.
which means that he would have probably lost his nutrition quite early on simply because, you know, I don't think he can go through 2 big bottles within 30K. So there's a sign there. We saw him open a little special compartment on his frame where he was getting out of gel, so he's got extra nutrition in there. But yeah, tricky times because now he's got a way to go until he gets a bottle.
Yeah, and I think we can see that aero bottle there, but I don't think he's got any other bottles.
He does. He's got a bottle inside his frame right there
as
as he's taking a sip.
Bikes are so clever, you can't even see the bottle.
Yeah, well, if you look underneath that aero bottle there's a little nozzle just where his knees come up, and that's exactly a nozzle that's meant to open so you can squeeze water into it. And then at the front, where you see the writing on the frame, on the inside, there's actually a bladder that's connected to a little tube which runs between his arms. It basically allows him to take on his hydration and nutrition without ever having to leave the aero position, which makes it just that much more efficient.
Just having a little bit of a look down that leaderboard we've got on the left-hand side of the screen there, and with the caliber of runners that we know both Rico Bogen and Hayden Wilde are, sort of looking a bit further back, we've obviously got Leo Bergere, another fantastic runner. He was 3rd at last year's Olympics, and speak of him and he shall appear. There is Leo Bergere indeed, current Olympic bronze medalist. He's also been a world champion in short course racing, and he has raced a few 70.3 races, but never appeared on the T100 circuit. He's one of our hot shots, so it's exciting to have him here. But he's currently given a 49-second advantage to those 2 athletes right at the front of the race, and be very interesting to see who can hunt down those 2 athletes if the gaps stay the same as this as they head into the final section of the race on the run. I mean, I know we've still got a quarter of this bike left to go, but I'm just sort of having a bit of a look down now and seeing who I think might be able to run through the field and possibly contend for the win. Got Jelle Geens, he's now back 2 minutes 22, so that's a little bit further than we maybe were expecting from him as well.
He's been suffering with an Achilles injury, so he's actually reduced his running load quite significantly. So that will be interesting to see how he performs once he puts his running shoes on in just over 20 kilometers time.
Another interesting aerodynamic study here. This is the very extreme, I think, of what we're seeing. Somebody put out their elbows. I mean, they're basically under his nose. He's so far out front, and that's kind of where the trend is going. Whether it works is something that every athlete has to test individually, but he's right on the trend here. I do believe he's recently changed bike sponsors as well.
Yeah, that's right, very recently. He only just announced it in the last week.
So that means those changes might be fairly recent, but riding strong, riding solid, and I think he's someone that on his day can outrun anyone in the field.
Another athlete as well who's not opted for the aero helmet. He's gone for a more road helmet, and again, I can only assume, and quite sensibly so, it's because of the extreme heat here. Those aero helmets are so hot. So it's sort of a bit of a trade-off of maybe a little bit of a speed for keeping yourself a bit cooler throughout the race.
How much time are we talking between those helmets?
So it's a wattage saving, and even these road helmets, they're now aerodynamically optimized, which means that the kind of wattage that's extra needed, measured at 45K, is actually not that huge. What we can see perfectly here with Marten Van Riel is he's on the very other end of the extreme. This is a helmet that I like to call the fireman's helmet.
Oh, I call it the Stormtrooper, so there we go.
There you go, between the two of them. But you can see what it does is it very much closes the gap between his shoulders as well. It's incredibly wide. The problem is when you're bobbing your head like he is right here, left to right, that creates a lot of resistance, right? If you hold it perfectly and you hold it steady, then aerodynamically this is a very, very fast helmet. But as soon as you move, you're dropping your head. We can see this is, I mean, it looks like he's at a dance party. He's moving his head back and forth. A testament probably also to the struggle out there. And then you very soon lose the aerodynamic advantage that such a helmet provides.
Brilliant. Down the side of his jersey there, he's got "Keep It Real." Good bit of wordplay from Martin. Right, let's have a look, shall we, because just like last season, across the year, athletes are going to be competing to become the T100 World Champion, and someone is going to finish first this year in the race to Qatar.
We have a race on our hands.
Fittingly, Marten Van Riel just in shot there before we changed. He won our series last year and will be hoping to do exactly the same this year round. Just a point on Marten Van Riel. When you have a season as successful as he did last year, winning 3 of the 4 races he entered, coming second in the one that he lost, so he couldn't really have done much better. How do you top a year like that? How do you mentally prepare for a year coming in this year?
Well, again, it depends very much on what drives you. I think for Marten, he has always wanted, as so many athletes do, to be at the very, very top, to be at the top of his game, to be world champion, to be the very, very best. And he's fought for that in his career over short course. He got as close as second, he got as close as 4th in the Olympics, but he never made it to the absolute #1 spot. And then in his first season on the T100, he achieved that. And now the question is, how does he go about defending that title? Does he think he's got a chance of defending that title? Does he know that the athletes coming in are just going to raise the level again? And I think he almost has no choice but to assume that the level is going to go up. And therefore, he has to do more than he's ever done before if he wants to contend this season.
We can hear from the man himself. Here he is discussing how he's approaching 2025.
Having won the series now, it's putting both, a bit of a target on me and some pressure, but also it does motivate me a lot. We saw a lot of people, new people signing for the T100 series this year, and I think obviously all they want is the title I took last year. So there is a lot of competition now, but that motivates me, like I won something that they all want to win, but obviously I'm not gonna give it to them for free either. So I'm gonna be all in to defend the title. It's a great time to be a professional athlete now. Just having this circuit, having it being broadcast to the world to see our beautiful sport, it's amazing to be a part of that. So I hope I can also give some show there, and that we can have some amazing races. And for sure, with the amount of competition we have, the final in Qatar is going to be amazing, because probably that's where, after a long season, everything is going to get decided in one race.
As we see Wilde taking his share of the load at the front, overtaking Rico. Interesting there, just to finish on Marten Van Riel. I always found the problem with reaching your goal and reaching your dream is that you crush it at the same time.
Now you've got to set a new one.
Yeah, you do, and that can be tricky, depending on what your motivation is and where your heart is actually lying. It's not that easy to just repeat and say, oh, well, because in the end, twice as much is not twice as good. It really is something of a challenge, I think, that athletes face, and something that certainly took me a long time to figure out. See Rico taking on a gel here, taking on nutrition. You can see now he's got the smaller bottles, which is the reason why he doesn't put his straps around the nozzle of the bottle anymore to secure them. It actually just doesn't work. It wouldn't function. He's pouring cold water onto his hands there, which is a common trick in kind of where you take your pulse, is also a very good place to cool down. But now he's got these 2 elastic bands hanging on the front and the back of his bike, simply because the bottles are shorter. They're 500 milliliter bottles, so half a liter, versus the 1 liter bottles that he would have had before, and they simply wouldn't hold onto anything, so they're kind of just hanging there dysfunctionally.
Any impact on the aero?
Probably. You don't.
What are we talking? 1 watt, 2 watt?
No, you'll be surprised. Like, things that stick out. We were talking about the straw, for instance, earlier. That's in the integrated nutrition system that Rico has as well. If that stands out, that can be a ridiculous amount. We're talking like 5, 8, 10 watts, depending on the position. It's every single time it's individual. You can't, across the board, stand and say, oh, this is what happens. But, you know, the worst thing is something flapping around. The athletes here, they don't have to wear a race number. That's individual to every country and every specific race. So a flapping race number can be something that costs you a huge amount of aerodynamic advantage. And it seems like no... Well, it seems like those bands are sitting fairly firmly, so it's probably not that much of an issue, but again, just interesting observation.
Pretty glad we don't have race numbers in this series. I never liked a race number, and I completely agree. It feels so counterintuitive. You do all of this work and everything you can in wind tunnels to aerodynamically optimize your position and gain watts here, there, and everywhere, and then you have to wear a number belt and it flaps around everywhere. So, no, personally, I'm a big fan of no number belts, please.
Well, we're going to have them on the run later on. That is where the rules change. So the athletes have to pick them up in T2 and put them on, but none on the bike.
All right, so just over 15 kilometres to go, perhaps even a little bit less. We've got one more lap as well, just ahead of these athletes out on course. Hayden Wilde still out in front. Rico Bogan just behind. And Mathis Margier not far behind that. Mika Nutz of Germany in fourth. Leo Bergere from France in fifth. And our champion across 2024, Marten Van Riel, sitting, so some of our surprise perhaps, in sixth after that massive effort in South Africa a week ago.
Yeah, Mathis Margier, he's been the big mover, really, hasn't he, in the last 5 kilometres or so. I think we're just going to get eyes on him here now as he's going to roll up beside. There we go, there's Mathis. So he's firmly in sight now, tacking onto the back of Rico Bogan and making it a 3 up ahead. He was riding with Mika Nutz for the majority of the last sort of 20 minutes or so. He's broken away and he's going to make it to the front of the race soon.
Interesting looking at that graphic where you can see all of the movers and all of the people who've lost positions, and people like Mathis, yeah, as you mentioned, Vicky, gained 12 places on the bike, and the likes of someone, you know, like Vincent Luis lost 14 positions. It's really lays bare, doesn't it, your skills and your strengths and how you're feeling in this heat and the intensity of Singapore.
Yeah, well, we're seeing there on that leaderboard, Vincent Luis is now nearly 8 minutes down,
and Sam Long is there. Sam Long is ahead. The man we cannot discount, because none of this race is done until Sam Long has spoken. We don't know which version we're going to get of him, but he is certainly someone to count on for the last laps of this race.
And he's only lost about 30 seconds across the bike to the front, because he was 5:37 down coming out the water. So he's held his own, completely on his own.
Yeah, his size 13 shoes will be waiting for him in a short while as he makes his way out onto the run course. Interesting thing I thought that Sam Long spoke about this week, and we know, as we've spoken about already today, about the mental challenge of coming last in the swim on most occasions. But he's changed his perspective perhaps a little bit on the T100, saying with the strength and quality of the field, he's happy with the 5th and 6th place out here. He's prepared and actually looks quite favourably on that and isn't giving himself perhaps such a hard time. I don't know what you guys make of that.
Yeah, I can't say I'm a fan of that statement, but we get a shot here of Jelle Geens, who's almost 3 minutes behind now. We know he's very fleet-footed. He's obviously had a perfect track record since the T100 in Las Vegas, but he's got his work cut out here. I mean, they've got some quick runners, and the thing about this heat and humidity is that it puts an overall dent on the speed, right? So the top speeds are not going to be that fast, and it kind of brings everyone a little bit closer together. So to make up 3 minutes is leaving his work cut out from him. I mean, it's tricky, and we've still got the last 2 laps to go. I do believe that this is also going to be a stage where kind of times can still blow out a bit, and he's finding himself in a tricky situation that he's going to have to fight back from.
Good friends with Marten Van Riel as well. They've spent a lot of time together. It was a fascinating Las Vegas T100 we had last year when they were battling it out over the last lap. It was a case of one go in front, then the other overtake, and they did that, didn't they, for the whole 18 kilometers, it felt like.
Yeah, and especially on that course, as well as this course, you know, he's one of the smaller athletes. That means he's a lighter athlete, so he probably deals with the climbing a lot better. The run course here, obviously only having a little bit of elevation around the turnaround, but he's not giving up, and he's just overtaking Yuri and holding his own.
He also is based now Gold Coast, Australia. His partner is from Australia, so he moved over there late last year. It's actually why he couldn't be with us in Dubai. He got offered a wild card quite last minute to come and be part of that grand final in Dubai last year, but he was midway through emigrating when he got the call, and so it was just a bit too difficult to manage, so he had to pass up on that opportunity. But he has therefore spent the last 4 months or so based in the heat and humidity of Gold Coast, so he will be incredibly used to these conditions. I know he does like hot and humid anyway. As you alluded to, he's a small athlete, he's good on the hills, so it's a course that's pretty well suited to him. But at 2 minutes, nearly 3 minutes down now from our leader Hayden Wilde and Rico Bogan, of course Margerier in there as well, I'm not sure he's going to make up that time unless those athletes in front blow.
Yeah, 3 minutes the gap. All to do for Jelle Geens in the final stages of this bike leg.
I think all things being equal, you would say that Jelle and Hayden would run very, very similar. We've seen that already, that they would be running shoulder to shoulder a lot of this race. But at 2 minutes and 50 back, that's where who has hydrated the best, who's taken on the electrolytes, who's fueled well enough, who has paced himself well enough, that's what's going to be key.
Just crossing the leaders there. Well, let's hear from Jelle Geens. He's got that 100% winning record in the T100 so far. He'll want to keep that for sure here in Singapore. Here he is on being the man in form.
I've had a good roll so far since T100 in Las Vegas. It was a bit of a turning point for me in my middle distance career, I think, and yeah, it's been going very, very good ever since then. Yeah, I'm excited to give it a crack here and try to go for the win, but I think it will be very hard, and there's gonna be a lot of people that want to aim for that win. You try to beat the other guys, of course, but it is fun, because a lot of the guys I like a lot, and it come races each for themselves and try to beat the other one, but respectfully though, during the race as well. But yeah, I know it's just gonna be full-on super hard race from the gun, because that's what we've been doing all our lives in short course, and I don't expect anything less on Sunday.
Confirmation just while we were watching that interview that Rico Bogan has retaken the lead of the race. Hayden Wilde and Rico Bogan working very well out in front to share the load and keep this race as far away from the likes of Jelle Geens as possible. In terms of what Jelle Geens brings to the T100 this year, we're going to see him an awful lot in the races, as we get a great shot there of the air-conditioned pods that are so far away from how these athletes are feeling right now. But yeah, in terms of someone like the calibre of Jelle Geens, the calibre of all of the athletes we've got on the T100 this year, what effect does that have on the likes of Marten Van Riel, who won last year? How much does it make them step up their game for 2025?
Well, it's interesting who takes the challenge, right? I mean, that was a very amicable interview, right? There was no aggression. There was no, I'm going to come here and I'm going to rip this crown into my hands. There was a lot, we're nice, and whoever has the best day, well, they're probably going to win.
Friends.
And Jelle is that kind of guy. I'm not trying to force it onto him. He's just a very, very nice person. And, that's sometimes where I think later in the season we're going to see the kind of killer spirit who really wants to win come out a little bit more. It's early days, and there is that uncertainty after a long winter of where you stand, compare yourself. You also don't want to expose yourself too much and go out, guns blazing, telling everybody how you're going to rip the legs off them and then come 10th. That's not ideal either. So
it's not good luck, is it, when you do that?
Conservative start.
Yeah, no one wants to be that person who comes out and says that they're going to be the next winner, the next champion. As you said, I'm going to rip your legs off, and then if you fail to do that even one time, you become that person who's set their stall out and hasn't been able to live up to that.
So Jelle Geens taking on some water or some nutrition. Should actually mention here the volunteers who do a superb job for us on the T100 across the season, and you'll notice they're wearing gloves there. That has been found to be an easier way for the athletes to grab those water bottles. They hold them from the top, and they have tested it, and that seems to be the easiest way to do it. We're trying to avoid those very, very painful knuckles that the athletes will experience if they ride at 40 kilometers an hour into one of those bottles, because I bet that hurts.
It doesn't hurt as much as watching the highlights reel on social media of yourself dropping them afterwards. I speak from experience.
So we're on the final lap of the bike course. We're starting to think about that transition zone and getting out onto the run, and this race is beautifully poised, isn't it, for the run. If you look down that leaderboard, we've now got 7 athletes all within a minute and a half. Don't discount the likes of Jelle Geens and Justus Nieschlak just behind. Yuri Kulin, last year's champion as well. I'm sure we'll have something to say about the final standings, but yeah, this is beautifully poised ahead of the run leg.
It's very different to the races we saw last year, where we were used to seeing Marten Van Riel be at or off the front, coming off the bike, and then using his strong run to just hold that throughout the final leg of the triathlon. This time round, we've got Hayden Wilde, Rico Bergere and Mathis Bergere. Those are looking likely to be our trio that head into T2 together. Behind them, though, it's not a big gap. You know, only 46 seconds to Mika Newt. He does... Just pausing to hear what you're saying there.
Bit of fresh air, I think, is what he said.
I see, so he's taking his visor off to allow a bit of air onto his face, keeping himself tucked nice and low.
We need to get Jess and Hayden on a bike together, don't we? Between Jess Learmonth, who raced yesterday, and Hayden Wilde, we've been treated to some brilliant insights on the bike.
Get them mic'd up so we can hear what's going on. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just, you know, further behind, of course, Marten Van Riel, we're used to seeing him run at the front, but we are dubious, shall we say, how his legs are going to perform on the final leg, given what we know he's been through in the last sort of 10 days. Jelle Geens, again, fantastic runner. Can he chip into that deficit and make his way back up to podium? But then, of course, Justus Nieschlak, Yuri Kulin, fantastic runners. Benito Lopez, actually, another really good runner, and I think he's had a really good day. He swam right in that second pack, which I think was a pretty good result for him. And then, of course, Sam Long. You know, he is that guy who is just going to keep chomping away at those athletes in front, and it's a case of how many can he catch.
Well, he's another 3 minutes back, but I think so Geens and Benito Lopez, between the two of them, that could actually be a nice advantage, that they're two very strong runners. They seem to perform well in the heat to really edge each other on, right? Because at 3 minutes distance, that's almost 1 kilometer up the road. That's a very hard carrot to choose. But if you're being pushed by a competitor shoulder to shoulder, that can really, really up the run pace and, you know, get you at least in contention of the podium. Because right now, I think Hayden is very happy in the position he is.
Yeah, just needs to be careful. Sorry to interrupt you, Jan. Just needs to be careful of that. That was definitely the red light was flashing on the back of Hayden's bike. I know they're going through a tighter technical part of the course. We know there's a bit of leniency there, but
that's only because he was being passed. So he was being passed, and he has, you know, sort of another 40 seconds, 45 seconds to slot back. As long as he's seen to be making backwards progress, or that sounds, well, to be going backwards.
It's a new term, I like it.
Indeed,
though.
yes, backwards progress. That then he's absolutely fine within the rules.
You just want, at this point in the race, you put all that effort in on the bike. A silly mistake, obviously fatigue is setting in at this stage of the race, isn't it? One of those moments could result in a 1 minute drafting penalty, and that would be a really rubbish way for Hayden Wilde to finish this part of the course.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a disaster given all the effort he's put in to have, well, a nigh on 1 minute lead now on 4th place, Mika Newt. So, yeah, to lose that at this point in the race would be pretty devastating.
Greg Barnaby, the Ironman Pro Series champion from last year. He took the overall title in the end. Probably not quite the same level of competition as what he's used to from that into the T100, but he's made the transition, which is great to see him stepping up and facing the very, very best in the world on a consistent basis. He reigns from Italy. He's done one of my favorite ever social media presentations of a new sponsor, which is when he was signing a wheel deal. He made a pizza the size of his disc wheel and presented it. I thought
How
that was
Italian.
that was the most Italian thing you've ever seen.
Having a great showing here today so far, though. 7th place and a minute 40 down, riding with the likes of Leo Bergere. Like, some of us questioned his decision to come across the T100. I love that he's done this and come across here to such a high caliber, steep quality field. But he didn't have to do that. He could have gone and, you know, defended his title on the other side and in the Ironman Pro Series, but he's put himself in here with such a deep field and, yeah, showing exactly what he's made of here today.
We do know if he's going to contend in the race to Qatar, he's going to have to be consistent, and to become the Pro Series champion, the number one thing you have to be is consistent. You have to keep putting in those results race by race in order to give you the most amount of points possible. So yeah, we're really excited about seeing what Gregory Barnaby can do this year on the T100.
Well, he's got the consistency. Now he's just got to work on the very top end.
Same coach as Kate Woff too.
And he's got the lighter inner parts of the tyre, which I know you like, Jan.
White wall tyres. I have to say, I do have a love for white wall tyres. Just optically, they just look good. I know they bring a little bit of old school, but they just look good.
Yeah.
So he makes his way up the Benjamin Shears Bridge here in Singapore. He's definitely got company, hasn't he, around him? And
yeah, that's
he's
Yuri.
making the pass there. On,
Yuri Kulin, and in front of him is Marten Van Riel. So these three athletes just riding together now on this last lap of the bike.
What position does Marten Van Riel have to finish in, Jan, to prove you wrong and prove that going to Ironman South Africa last week was a good idea?
Well, I mean, he's already exceeded my expectations by a long way. I do think he's probably in for a tough 18 Ks. But then again, you know, if he can just get a few points on the board, if he can stay within the top 5, that, in my eyes, would be a phenomenal performance, something that, you know, is kind of unheard of.
You can see there, Bergere has dropped right back from Hayden Wilde and Rico Bogan out in front.
That is the pain of the last lap. It's just 80K is one thing, but, you know, 9 laps going over that hill over and over and again. He's obviously blown up on the hill or suffered on the hill. Perhaps he's also just decided that this is the last lap and he's kind of saving a little bit out for the run to try and defend his 3rd place here. I think realistically, being with Rico Bogan and Hayden Wilde, a 3rd place would be a dream outcome.
Oh, I think he'd be delighted if he was to finish 3rd today. But I also wondered if, given what we saw yesterday and what we know from previous years here in Singapore, whether he sort of is just taking the opportunity to try and stretch out a little bit, maybe. We saw so many people getting cramps, so many people coming off the bike and sort of hobbling their way through transition. We saw that with Jess Learmont, we saw it with Lucy Charles-Barclay. There were other athletes, and as I said, in previous years, there's been many who have struggled with that. So maybe he just decided it was worth his while to just have a little bit of a stretch before he got off the bike.
We should mention as well just how warm the conditions are. I know when we've thrown down to Alex in the transition zone, he and Carl Smith both remarked on just how warm it was. Compare it to the women's race yesterday. There were significant periods of cloud cover in the bike, at least in the bike. I think the run was mainly in the sun, but these guys today have had pretty much the unrelenting Singapore sun on them the whole time.
And it wasn't long, but we also got a little bit of a rain shower on the bike yesterday, which
just a bit. Oh, on the rain shower, yeah.
The
one afterwards.
Yeah, the one at the end of the race. We were, you know, by the time we were off air for everyone at home, probably within 10 minutes or so, we got a thunderstorm and extreme rain here. And had that happened just, you know, a few minutes earlier, the athletes would have been evacuated from the course. The race would have had to be abandoned. So we got very lucky with the weather yesterday. Obviously hoping for similar again today, but they did get a tiny little rain shower during the race as well when they're on the bike. I remember seeing the spots of rain on the lens of the camera. So these guys, I think, have had hotter and tougher conditions than we saw yesterday.
It's going to make the final 18-kilometre run very, very interesting. Don't go anywhere. This race is by no means over, and the people you see out here in front, who knows what's going to happen between now and the end of the race, as we get to see the Singapore Flyer just in the background there, as well as the Flower Dome and Cloud Forest Dome in the gardens by the bay.
Another flyer on screen here. Rico Bogan has gone and done a little surge. We can see on the data that we've got on the left, he's created a bit of a gap. 6 seconds doesn't seem like much, but it's a good bit of a comfort cushion that you might want to take onto the run. Gives you a little bit more ease of mind when you're going into transition, and just try and get a few meters out ahead, which is kind of free speed that Hayden would have to close.
It'll be interesting to see the transitions, won't it? Just thinking of Rico Bogan versus Hayden Wilde in that transition zone. Hayden Wilde already raced in Abu Dhabi this year, short course. We know how important the transitions are in that part. Well, they're important in every part of triathlon, but particularly in short course with it being shorter. Obviously, you've got less time. I think it's a lot to watch out for. So maybe Rico Bogan just thinking he's got to get a bit of extra time on the bike if he can.
Hayden's also infamous for running out super hard. Like, that's what he's done throughout his entire career, and at times has really cost him. If he does that today, that's, in my opinion, a bit of an error. I think he needs to really, really measure his effort out of T2 and really conserve his energy and just concentrate on his pacing throughout this 18K. Whereas if Rico forces him to sort of chase him at the beginning of the run, that's almost baiting him in. You know, that's baiting him to sort of say, hey, come catch me, and see if he does surge out of T2 and try and put power down, put an effort down, I should say, in that first kilometre.
Well, if you're ready for it, the thing is, the last 5 kilometers, kind of mentally, everyone's getting ready for that run, right? And kind of people are forgetting, not forgetting, but their focus is elsewhere. It is a great time to create a gap. And 6 seconds, that would be probably 200-300 meters that he's got to close. We can see the other gaps to Marten Van Riel and Leo Bergere has blown out to over 2 minutes. Mika Nut almost 90 seconds back.
All right, 300 meters, the gap he's put in. We're going to go down to Alex, who's in transition.
Yes, Rico Bogan emerging into T2, and Kyle is alongside. You were just saying that you were absolutely delighted for him today in the performance that Rico's putting in.
Yeah, he's had an absolute incredible bike leg here, and obviously he's got a lead, which is, you want the wind in your ears, you know, you can get that adrenaline, you get the crowds really coming after you, and yeah, you're on the front foot starting this run.
Hayden's got the gloves off as he spins round and prepares to get the shoes on to go running. Tell us about the way that you approach T2. You've put so much into it at this point. 2 down, 1 to go. What are you thinking? What is your process?
Yeah, it's like the first time you get a real indicator of the damage that's been done on the bike. You step off and your legs start running, and sometimes you start cramping, sometimes you feel awesome. And yeah, these guys obviously heading out, the damage might have already been done on the bike. Their core temperature might have already gotten really high, and you know, the core temperature only goes one way when you start running, and so limiting that. I think taking a couple of seconds in the aid stations just to slow down, put ice down your suit, and just mitigate those heat is going to be really smart today.
What's so interesting talking to you about it is how many extra factors you realise there are as an athlete relative to what you might be sitting at home with a cup of tea and watching. And you're talking about body temperature, you're talking about your place in the race, you're talking about your strategy at this point as well. Just tell me how you are working out which buttons to press at what time.
Yeah, look, it's so much different because everyone at home all the winter, they've got their metrics, they've got their data of what they've been training for. You know, they might be saying, my theoretical race pace is 3:10, 3:15 per kilometre. But when you put it in these conditions that you haven't experienced all winter, you know, you might start running and you're running 4-minute Ks, and that's all you have that day. And so you have to ignore what's going on in your watch, and you just have to go back to the internal body clock and just say, yeah, I'm pushing as hard as I can now. I think I can sustain this for another 5K.
And what is the internal monologue doing at this point? Is it just keep going, just keep going, just keep going? Are you trying to ignore the pain? How are you trying to get yourself sort of keeping on your toes rather than your heels?
Yeah, I was just talking to Lucy Charles-Barclay just 5 minutes ago, and she was saying yesterday, you know, she said, am I okay? Am I actually okay? You know, it's like that's the thing that's going through her head. It's, you know, what damage are you sort of doing to yourself? And what my mental cues last year was just keep going, just keep moving forward, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and it was people were dropping like flies all around me, and I think, you know, I picked up another place in the last 200 meters last year.
Absolutely. And if you are in this race at this sort of stage, at what point would you now be trying to sort of press the accelerator and work out your next moves?
Yeah, me learning from last year, I definitely wouldn't go a transition as hot as I did. Last year, I really wanted to be in the group, be on the front foot, run out with Alistair and Mika, but only shot myself in the foot at the end of the day. You know, I was really struggling after that first lap, and, you know, knowing what I know now, I would have gone a transition a lot slower, taken my time through the aid stations, put ice in, just kept cool, and just make sure I didn't get so hot that I was just in survival mode.
If I was going to give you $1 now, you'd be backing who?
My countryman, Hayden Wilde. I think that's probably what the bookies' lines are saying at the moment, Hayden. But look, in this race, again, you can't, you know, anything can happen. And so, yeah, Leo just running out of there. He's in a pretty good position. Rico obviously was looking great coming off the bike. And Jelle as well is just going to be coming off the bike soon. So we've got a hell of a race on our hands.
Fantastic. We are all set for a grandstand finish. Thank you very much indeed, Carl. Back to you guys in commentary.
Yeah, this is really exciting stuff. We saw there Hayden Wilde try to make the move, I think, over Rico Bogan, but Rico wasn't having any of it. He seemed to speed up just to make sure that Hayden Wilde didn't get the better of him. I think we can see a little replay now of Rico Bogan entering the second transition zone. And what happens here? He almost came off the bike. He loses a bottle in the process.
I think this is where we're going to see, he gave him a little fist pump as well. There we go. That was a little recognition of the efforts that they put in together on the bike and the lead they built. A little bit of sportsmanship before it's, right, let's see the best man on the run.
Do you think Rico accelerated that?
Oh, I don't know. It always looked like Hayden was leaning over for a little chat. And Rico's probably just stepping it up a little bit. No, just leave me alone.
No time to talk, Hayden.
So the two of them who've been together throughout the whole of the bike leg are now together right by each other's side for the run leg. Another look at what happened to Rico as he came into that second transition zone. He did well, Jan, didn't he, to keep upright here?
Yeah, so what happens is that basically the line that marks the entrance into transition, where you have to put down your foot in front of, is obviously a plastic tape, and he just took his second step on top of that line, which makes it extremely slippery, as we see the two going shoulder to shoulder, Hayden taking the lead for the first time in this run.
I know we're incredibly early on in the run here, and obviously we've got these two athletes running side by side, but for my money, Hayden seems to be controlling himself a little bit more than we have seen previously, and that's exactly what I felt he needed to do to try and win today. I think if he had blasted out of T2 and gone super hard in the first couple of kilometers to put a marker down, that could have spelled disaster for him. So this is, for me, a really mature performance from Hayden, pacing things, again, at this very early stage, but pacing things a lot better than we've possibly seen from him in the past.
What's he doing there, Vicky, in terms of just shaking out his shoulders, giving his arms a bit of a wiggle? What's he looking to do at that point?
Well, there's a couple of things. It's a relaxation thing. It's to try and just stop your shoulders being tight. And also, certain athletes, I was certainly one who used to get this, I get sort of tingling in my hands, so it just kind of shakes that out a little bit of a reset, but it's to do predominantly with keeping yourself as relaxed as possible and keeping your stride nice and fluid.
We're seeing them running side by side. It should probably be noted this is quite a narrow course around this section, and indeed most of the run course. We're shutting off a large part of Singapore for the T100 race, so we haven't got the entire path. We've kept some room for the supporters on the side. And Jan, just in terms of the width of this track, how are they going to manage this going forward?
Well, you know, I think Rico is playing a smart game here. He's reaching for his pocket. He's refueling. I'm not sure. He's got a plastic packet there of some sort where he's either got some nutrition or he's got some salts. And he, for this part, looks to be following and using the time to replenish himself. If I look at his stride, if I'm being overly critical, I think there are a few moments there where you could see him sort of almost overreaching just to keep up and make sure that rubber band doesn't extend to Hayden there. But as you said, Vicky, great start from Hayden. As we get eyes on Sam Long, and the chase is on.
Yeah, so Sam Long, 6 minutes and 48 seconds down into transition. So that's obviously a bigger gap than he had when he headed out onto the bike, but only by around about a minute. So considering he did all of that on his own, not too bad. And I would expect him to pick off some of those athletes in front of him, probably a few of them. Whether he can make it as far up as the podium, I'm not sure that that's possible for him today, but he'll certainly be looking to try and catch as many as possible.
Did look a little bit shaky. He lost his ice bag as we got eyes on the champion there for a second, who's out on the run course, and Hayden Wilde putting pressure on Rico Bogan.
That's a gap. That's a bigger gap than the last time we were seeing these pictures as they make their way out on this first lap of the run course. They've got 3 laps, totaling 18 kilometers.
It's a real toss-up now for Rico as to what his strategy is. He's got the carrot of Hayden Wilde to just try and tack onto and go as far as he can with him, and that would be a tactic that in a lot of races I would go for, but I just don't know if that's the tactic you employ in these extreme conditions. I think maybe he needs to run his own race and just potentially back it off a little bit, let Hayden do Hayden's thing.
We've got eyes here on Jelle Geens, who is at the last count 3.5 minutes behind. I wonder if he'll have something to say about Hayden Wilde's pace at the front and Rico Bogan. I mean, is he the biggest threat? Who's the biggest threat right now, do you think, Jan?
Well, he did have some real damage to his time in the last lap, so he was a touch under 3 minutes. That blew out another 40 seconds. I mean, he's looking smooth right here, but Hayden Wilde on his day is definitely, at least for the first half of this course, going to be very, very hard to outpace. It's going to be a race of resilience. It's going to be a race of strategy and pacing. So I think we're just going to have to wait probably another lap and a half to see where these distances go, because right now everyone's looking good. Everyone's looking really good, including our champion, Marten Van Riel, right here running again. Much more than I expected.
Yeah, holding it together really well, isn't he? We absolutely knew that we weren't going to see the very best of Marten Van Riel today. It would have been astonishing to see him be at the sort of heights we saw him at last season, given what he's done recently. But yeah, I think he is outperforming what we probably thought he would do, and looking pretty smooth. And yeah, a lot of running still to go.
Yeah, this time a week ago he was doing a marathon at the back end of a full Ironman. So just bear that in mind, folks at home, when you're as you're watching. Just try and equate what Marten Van Riel's week has looked like, with the travel from South Africa, getting to Singapore and getting adjusted to the time zone, but also recovering and making sure his body is in tip-top shape to be as much of a factor here in Singapore as possible.
Tough situation here for Rico Bogan. I think he knows that on his day, when everything is on, he is running for second place. I mean, on paper, Hayden Wilde is a phenomenal runner. Sorry, not just on paper. He is actually always a phenomenal runner. Someone that's got a low 13-minute, 5-kilometer best time. That is absolutely flying. And Rico knows he really needs to have, for Hayden to have a blip, to either struggle with the overall distance, struggle with the conditions, something like that. We know Rico's extremely tough in terms of getting himself into that position and surprising people. But right now, Hayden is laying the pressure on him, and it's going to be very tough to react.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Jan. I think Rico, phenomenal runner in his own right, but it's, well, we nearly lost our cameraman there. Gave us a bit of a shock, but yeah, I struggle to see how Hayden is beaten unless he paces this poorly himself. But saying that, he's at that gap only 4 or 5 seconds. It hasn't blown. You know, it did go out, but it didn't blow entirely.
So Marten Van Riel almost being caught by his countryman right now. Oh no, sorry, the time split just blew out again. He's lost, if I count correctly, a minute since transition. Could that be? Because they were within 2 minutes, or around about the 2-minute mark, so it's 45 seconds more. That he's actually looking really good, in my opinion. but it seems that from a pure timing perspective, he is last in that group where they were all together with Leo Bergere and Gregory Barnaby. Somebody who I think could actually do really well just because the conditions are so tough, and he is tough. He's not the fastest athlete out there, but he is definitely somebody who's tough, can hold on.
Yeah, definitely. And just as we were watching that footage there, we saw on the timings on the left-hand side that Leo Bergere did just move himself up into 4th place. So he will be trying to hunt down the podium. It is his countryman, Mathis Marjuria, who's in front of him, 45 seconds ahead. And right now, Leo Bergere is running fast.
I mentioned that Achilles injury that Leo Bergere has had. I wonder how much of an impact that might have. I said earlier, you know, his load or his training load has been reduced on the run. Is there a case that he might actually have fresher legs because he's been training less? I mean, how does it work?
I'm not sure he's going to want to say that he's got fresher legs, but what I will say is this is a course that is ideal for people who aren't running at their absolute fastest top speeds, because of these conditions. We talk about it so many times, but it just slows down what you possibly can do. You can't run the sort of pace that you might do on a cooler day in San Francisco. It's just not possible for 99.9% of humans out there. So they will be going slower, and that plays into the hands of people who maybe have the overall fitness, like Leo, but aren't possibly running at their absolute optimum right now.
Just hearing
There he
that
is.
Nicholas Mann might have DNF'd, I think. We'll bring you confirmation as soon as we can get it, but yeah, I think Nicholas Mann's race has been run, unfortunately, here in Singapore.
Well, he was lapped earlier. We did see that as Hayden comes and sees the gap that he's got. Sorry, that was Marten Van Riel going the other way. So right now, this is a great position for Hayden to be in. Find his groove. He knows he doesn't have to run with the pressure. And also, the good thing is when you hear the motorbike just behind you, then you know you've got a little gap.
Yeah, there's no one right there because otherwise the motorbike couldn't possibly be there.
The motorbike will never get exactly in between, and you would hear this sort of clacking noise of the carbon plated shoes. And it's actually one of the more blissful noises when you're running in the front. There's a motorbike that's right behind you.
Yeah, we just saw as well him pass Jelle Geens coming in the other direction, and he actually had a quick look. And I wonder if he was sort of keeping an eye on where Jelle might be.
This is Marten Van Riel. Just watch his footing. I think he takes a small trip.
Yep, doesn't realize that's a little speed bump.
Saved it. I think he was taking a drink at the same time as well, so a little bit of multitasking and nearly cost him a trip onto the concrete.
Yeah, fatigue is starting to set in. It's already set in for these athletes, and they've got to have their wits about them on this Singapore course. As Hayden Wilde maintains his lead out in front, now 9 seconds ahead of Rico Bogan in second, and then the two French athletes, Mathis Marjuria and Leo Bergere, in 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, he's not done anything too fancy so far in the run. He's been very calm, very collected, and just really slowly but surely eking out that gap on Rico Bogan. For me, this is a really mature performance from Hayden, and shows that he's probably learnt a bit from maybe the mistakes he's made over the last year or so in certain races, and he's determined not to do that again and to end up on top today.
Yeah, just seeing Sam Long over the other side. So, sorry, Jan. Both got good eyes, apparently. All right, well, if you like what you're seeing here in Singapore, you must remember the T100 isn't just about pro athletes. Thousands of amateurs are going to get to race the 100 distance across the season and across the world. Come and join us.
This is the moment we waited for. Everything you want is right here. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Running the game now. Foot on the gas, can slow down. No. Watch the game change, yeah.
Jan, you were out this morning cheering on, handing water to some of the amateur athletes going round. How was that experience?
To be honest, it's become one of my favorite things to do because it's kind of unexpected, and you find people in their slouch and in their zone, and every now and then you can just give someone a nice surprise on their way, and it's a really nice kind of, I don't know, energy that you give on, right? And it's become, yeah, like I said, one of my favorite ways to support. Give someone a cold bit of water, which is probably the only thing you can do. As Marten Van Riel seems to be getting his rhythm, he has bridged the gap to Gregory Barnaby, and he's
really picked up his turnover there, hasn't he?
Has definitely found his legs, which actually makes sense. I mean, if you're going to have a good day, the one thing an Ironman might do is just take a little bit more time to get going, right? He's got Mika Nut up at the front there, if I'm not mistaken, so he can really work his way up and do Marten Van Riel things.
He's super close. It might just be the camera angle, but he's, in my mind, he's running very, very close to who is that in front of him?
Gregory Barnaby.
That's Gregory Barnaby, isn't it? Yeah, he's running super close to him.
Yeah, I think that's the camera angle. It's definitely a zone you don't want to be getting too close, but it doesn't look like he is. He'll move up onto his side eventually. But I think right now he's just happy to have someone to pace on and just really focus on that between shoulder blade zone to lock in and just make sure you throw an anchor.
Well, that's
You're
what
not going anywhere, buddy.
I was going to say, for me, it always used to be look at the ponytail or the plaits or whatever it was of the girl in front, you know, use them and just focus on that if you can't think about doing anything else. Here we are with Rico Bogan. He does look to have slowed quite a bit from what we were seeing before. There's a bit more rock and roll in those shoulders at the moment. That cadence has gone down, and we're going to pan out now and see the gap. Now we can't even see Hayden at this point, and on the side of the screen we're seeing at 15 seconds, and just eyeballing it now, we still haven't got to Hayden. There he is. So that gap has blown out a little bit now. So Rico Bogan starting to metaphorically and physically feel the heat, I think.
Well, let's take stock a little bit here. We're 5K into the run. Mathis Margier is now sitting at 2:19, which means he's lost a minute and 20 since the start of the run. Mika Nut was 1:44 back. He's almost doubled his deficit. That shows you the pace that Hayden Wilde is laying down here. Leo Bergere at 2:46. He was 2:11 down, so he's only lost half a minute, but this is in 5K. Hayden Wilde is putting down a ferocious pace as we see.
I think they took Mika Nut by surprise there.
Backwards.
Yeah, both of them have gone past Mika Nut, so now it's Mika Nut's turn to try and respond to that. These three athletes working together could be really, really beneficial for them, but yeah, Mika Nut definitely wasn't expecting that. Back at the front with Hayden, and he is moving fastest, I should say, out on course right now. Jelle Geens holding that gap near enough. Still think he's lost 15 to 20 seconds at this point in the run. So right now, Hayden Wilde not only leading the race, but running fastest too.
Yeah, making his way to the end of the first lap, checking his watch and rounding the corner.
So what you see dangling there is one of these socks that the T100 volunteers have gotten ready. They're basically a breathable, permeable material that they filled as ice socks, basically. A little bit unfortunate positioning, but in general, it's obviously serving the purpose.
Yeah, that was the feedback from last year. The athletes, whilst grateful for ice bags and plastic bags, for some cooling effect, found that once the ice had started to melt, that layer of plastic that they were having inside their suits was making them too hot. So they've adjusted that, as we see now Rico Bogan coming round, and he's definitely looking a bit more ginger.
Grimacing as he made that turn.
Definitely starting to feel things a little bit now, and he's still got 2 full laps to go, 12 kilometres left for Rico Bogan. You can see him puffing out those cheeks as he runs down the blue carpet, and he's got to really focus now because there will be some athletes coming from behind.
Well, ironically, he's running the same pace as Leo Bergere, so he's a good half a minute that he's lost to Hayden in the last, what would it be, 3 kilometers, because he was with him for quite a while. But Leo Bergere has made up no time to him since the start of the run. But again, the third lap, I think, is where a lot of these times are going to come a lot closer or blow out a lot more.
Do you think in terms of the distance here, we know Hayden blew up at the 70.3 championships back end of last year. This is 3 kilometres less. Do you think the T100's distance is suited to him a little bit better? Or he'll learn at least from that experience in Topple at the end of last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we see Leo Bergere coming through here, he blew up at kilometer 15, I believe. So, you know, he's building his cushion so that if he does blow up, he's only got 3 Ks to go. But he did obviously also have a whole winter to prepare for those 3 kilometers. We talked about the coaching change he's had, and I think so far things are working out magically for him.
Just imagine him doing 3K loops, 3K repeats.
Yeah, but it only counts from the 6-1.
Yeah.
Marten Van Riel coming into the transition zone here. 1 of 3 laps done. He looks fairly solid, actually.
Yeah, he's looking pretty smooth still. Doesn't seem to have had too many differences to his stride now than as he did at the start of the run. So holding it together pretty well. Still got about 25 seconds on Leo Bergere, and that is the battle currently for that 3rd place.
For the likes of that group, Margerie, Bergere, Barnaby, Van Riel, they're all there or thereabouts. Mikanut certainly in that as well. Do you think their tactics are going to be more just do their, go at the pace they're currently going at and hope Hayden Wilde drops back, or do you think one of them is going to look to take the initiative and try and pressure Hayden later on?
I think at this point they're too far back from Hayden to be thinking about how they pressure him. I think what they've got to do is keep doing everything they can do to move forward as well as they can, as fast as they can, as smoothly as they can, whilst taking in all their nutrition. And then if Hayden blows, and then that's when they can pounce. We just saw Marten Van Riel go in the opposite direction to Hayden Wilde, so they'll have got eyes on each other for the first time in a little while.
Support for Hayden Wilde out in full force. Some lovely signs from some young fans here in Singapore.
From Hayden's perspective, I mean, this is bliss, where you have the out and back, and when you've got an advantage and when you're moving away, the out and back is beautiful, right? When you're struggling, it's tough because you see that the front runner is running away and everyone else is coming from behind. But from Hayden's perspective, this is really good. This is Yuri Kulin. He looks about as good as he did at lap 1 from last year. 2 laps to go. Let's bring it home, buddy.
Yeah, he said he wanted to remember this finish line. He looks good for it at the moment, but there's still 12 kilometers for him to go.
Shows you need to be very, very specific in your manifestation. He might remember it, but I don't think he'll remember it quite as fondly as he will the images from last year. But way to go and put up a fight here and come back.
He did say that he started his heat prep in January this year because he was so worried.
Jelle Geens going the other way.
Yeah, and if we look at
the
time splits on the side of our screen show, he's now down to 4.5 minutes back. So the last time we clocked eyes on him, he looked like he was moving really well.
And he looked like he was in pain there. I would really actually like that it's maybe stomach pain or something that's gone wrong and not his Achilles. You don't wish that on anybody, especially as the season is young and there's much racing to go.
Looks pretty set that Jelle Geens' perfect streak is not going to continue here today, whereas this man looks set to be perhaps our 2nd T100 hotshot of the weekend to take home victory. And that is the beauty of the hotshot contracts. That's what they're there for. We bring in exciting new talent, often from short course racing, just to see what they can do. And here we go, back to Jelle Geens. That is not a comfortable person right now.
Yeah, contrast that to how Yuri Kulin was looking just a short while ago, and it's a very, very different looking stride for Jelle Geens. Would you speculate, Jan or Vicky, there might be something up there? You said maybe some cramps or stomach issues.
Well, I was just going to say he's not visibly limping, so to me that made me wonder if it was more of a stomach cramping type issue. But it's so hard to know. I mean, that was just my first observation. Here we go, and now he's stopping.
No,
I think he's at, yeah, suit's coming off. Or just letting some air in, perhaps. Yeah, this is never nice to see.
This is right opposite the spectator zone as well, where his wife would be watching. It's the highs and lows. They're so close together.
Yeah, it'll be devastating to sort of end the run of results he's had, where he's been so dominant over this distance, and to now be stood head in hands on the barrier is not what you want. That's, yeah, we just saw another athlete come past to give him a slight tap. Speaking to one of our officials now just to work out whether he's going to continue racing or not.
Yeah, this definitely looks though, if you're looking, he's not stretching his Achilles, he's working on his back or trying to open up his tummy.
I wondered if it was that sort of abdominal cramping that we saw from Jess Learmonth yesterday as well. There was definitely something going on there that's making him incredibly uncomfortable. But here's another man running through the field, and we know to expect this from Sam Long. He's never going to give in until the final steps. But he's moving through nicely.
He looks good.
I was looking at some timings, and it seemed like he's roughly running the same pace as Hayden, at least for that first lap, which, you know, last year he is somebody who's known to train huge volume, which is what helps you in these kind of conditions. If we go back to the battle of Barnaby and Van Riel, you just saw Sam go the other way. These guys are a long way ahead of him still, and running a decent pace now.
Yeah, still about 3.5 minutes up on Sam Long, but Sam Long has moved himself up into 12th place, so he's moved up 7 places at this point during the race from where he came out of the swim. So he's still moving forward, still time for him to chomp up a few more of those athletes in front of him.
Just thinking about the challenging conditions we've had here in Singapore today, it definitely feels like it's been hotter compared to the women's race yesterday. I wonder if the likes of Sam Long, you've got to be in it to win it, right? And we might well see a few of these athletes really start to struggle in the final 10 kilometers or so that we've got left.
Well, it looks like they're not in direct sunlight right now, but way to go on Marten Van Riel here, making me eat my words yet again. It's becoming one of my quick favorite things to do. I do also stand corrected that I was obviously referring to the age group race, that they have to wear a bib number. They are not wearing it right here. Oh, as we see Jelle Geens being taken off the course, he's obviously decided to abandon the race.
Yeah, never a sight we want to see in the T100, and we hope Jelle Geens can get some help and start to feel better as soon as possible.
Just noticing as well, when we look at those timing splits, we haven't had eyes on him for a little while now, but Rico Bogan now at 1:25 down on Hayden Wilde. He's still got about 1.5 minutes on Mathis Margerier, so he's still holding pretty well onto a podium position. But Mathis Margerier himself is now only 7 seconds ahead of Leo Bergere, so it looks like pretty soon we're going to have a bit of a change around up front. Leo Bergere is going to make it up into a podium position. And with the speed he's running at versus, it seems now, the speed that Rico Bogan has dropped to, we might see Leo get up even higher, maybe possibly even into second.
Yeah, Olympic bronze medalist, the 2022 World Triathlon Champion, a man who knows his way around this sport and has the credentials to back it up.
Also, I just want to really talk about, we talked about Martin quite a lot, how impressed I am with Gregory Barnaby at this point. We spoke about how it was possibly a gamble, a bit of a risk coming across to race the T100, and right now he's putting in a fantastic showing, currently in 5th place, but moving really nicely, running with last year's T100 champion, and looking set for a really solid start to this season.
Well, that's the thing. I think, you know, he's got the consistency, he's got the toughness, which really plays into his hands on this kind of course, these kind of conditions. You know, he doesn't normally have the high-end speed that someone like Marten or Hayden Wilde would have, but that's not what's required on this course. And the beauty of the T100 series is that there really is a course to suit pretty much any strength. It's so diverse, it's so different. I would possibly argue that this is maybe the toughest course out there, simply because of the elevation on the bike course and the temperature conditions we talked about many times. But it's just why are we getting so many different champions as well, because it's no race is like the other.
I mean, that's exactly what we want to see, right? From a spectator and fan point of view, you want to see different courses, different climate, different conditions, different winners. But yeah, he has raced once on our series already, or finished once, I should say, highest place of 10th. So looking pretty good to improve on that.
Well, a great view there of Singapore, the fountain and the tourists, I guess, or maybe perhaps some locals there as well, getting a sight of the Marina Bay.
Half lion, half fish. This is what the mermaid, Singapore, I think it's called the lion's head, but yeah, that's what somebody explained to me. It's half lion, half fish.
Impressive stuff. And you'll also note as well, as we sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, there is now shade, and that can't come soon enough for these athletes, although it doesn't affect how their body temperature still is. It's still going to be super high from everything they've just done.
Yeah, it's not going to have too much of an effect. They're already so hot this deep into the race that it's not going to help cool them down, but it is going to hopefully stop them getting even hotter. And the one advantage they do have of racing slightly later on in the day is that they've got bigger shadows. So those shadows from the buildings will reach that little bit further than they did yesterday for the women's race, which means they're likely to be able to take on most of the run in those shady conditions, which I'm sure will be a blessed relief for them.
Yeah, we're an hour later today than we were yesterday, which will definitely have some effect on the athletes involved. So let's just round up where we are at the moment as we see Rico Bogan not looking all that comfortable in second place. Hayden Wilde has built out a 1:48 lead on Rico Bogan.
A fighter though, he never gives up. He's always got the aspiration, and it's great to see. I love it.
I mean, he didn't look super smooth, but he also hasn't completely fallen apart. So he's definitely not, he's not on the side walking. He's not had to stop. You know, this guy is still moving forward. So he's still in with a good shot of a very solid result here.
Well, he looks like most of the other athletes, really. He's kind of moving within that realm. It's just that Hayden Wilde really laid down the hammer and is absolutely flying as we get an indication of the pace.
Yeah, so there we go. That's Leo Bergere now. He has overtaken Mathis Margerier. So Leo Bergere moved himself into third place. His next target, if he's going to make any more inroads, as we see Hayden Wilde here coming the opposite direction, has to be Rico Bogan, and that means he's got about another 1:15 or so to chew up if he wants to make it another place higher on that podium today.
We mentioned it with Kate Woff yesterday, and just once you get into this lead, I mean, Kate ended up winning by 6.5 minutes yesterday, so we're not quite at that stage yet for Hayden, but at what point you start to think about, if you're Hayden Wilde, maybe just easing off the pace a bit, conserving the energy, not trying to give too much too early, because if he does start to suffer, if he does start to have a problem, he wants to have something in the tank.
Well, I think given his history of having these blow-ups in these big races, and I say history, it's only been a couple of times, but it's been a couple of major races, and so that will have really hurt him. Because of that, I would imagine that for him, he wants to be as steady Eddie as he possibly can be over the next 5 or 6 kilometers, so that he knows he's going to make it home in those final 2K and that he's going to take the win. There's no need for him to do anything special right now. There will be people out there on course giving him time checks. He will know he's got a solid 2 minutes ahead of Rico, and that gap is going out, and that he's got 3 minutes back to Leo. So for him right now, he just needs to keep it as calm and controlled as possible. There's nothing to gain for him by trying to go all guns blazing and try and put in a couple of really fast kilometers. He needs to keep this steady.
What a run Hayden Wilde is showing us here. I mean, he is continuously checking his pace. You can see him looking at his wrist all the time, checking on his splits. He would be measuring that for sure. I don't think he even needs someone out on course because of the nature. You can see the out and back. He can see the various reference points that they are further apart than they were on the last lap, or that they were on the last checkpoint. I think he's well within himself at the moment.
Yeah, I think he'll know now that Rico is not the threat. You know, he'll know that he's extending that gap back to Rico. He'll just be checking a little bit further back to see what the likes of Bergere, Margerier, Van Riel, Barnaby, what they're doing. But I think right now he can be fairly confident in what he's doing, and he looks smooth and very in control. He doesn't look like he's overexerting. He doesn't look like he's running nearly as fast as he actually is doing, and that bodes really well.
Yeah, you can see the graphic there, 5K in 15:38. That is a remarkable pace to be setting. Just puts it in context for perhaps some park runners out there. 15:38. How do you like that for part of his run here, Hayden Wilde?
I think many people at home watching would be really surprised to see that, because he does look so calm, controlled. He doesn't look like he's not got super fast turnover. He doesn't look like he's working especially hard. Of course, he is working hard, but you know, he doesn't look like he's in real distress here. And yet he's still running at 15:38 5K pace. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary.
Well, here's someone we haven't seen an awful lot of so far today, but he's having a fantastic race. He's now sitting in third, Leo Bergere.
Making his way up the podium. He's now on the podium. He is only 40 seconds behind Rico, and he's closed in a significant amount of time. I think he was 2:20 down in transition, in the transition. So I think he's definitely somebody who's also used to longer distances. He likes to train a lot of volume, so this will play into his hands. We'll see how much Rico has got left in the tank, but there is a definite fight on for the silver medal here.
He's been super consistent across his career, hasn't he? He's once again showing us that he can kind of turn his hand to any form of triathlon, whether that's long course, short course, any of the above. And he's very good value.
He's Mr. Medals, isn't he? He always seems to end up on the podium, and he does that, as we said, across all distances of racing. And he's showing it here again today. Right now, it's more a case of what colour medal he's going to win, rather than if he is going to win one.
Interesting how we perceive those things too, right? I mean, he is Mr. Medals. He's somebody who always wins a medal, whereas we talk about Hayden losing first place. It really is phenomenal how your psychology changes around it, because as a character in general, I would say Leo is someone who is probably a little bit more conservative. He flies under the radar, and yet he is a phenomenal athlete. I mean, Olympic bronze medalist cannot be praised high enough. But yeah, it's just an interesting perspective how it changes once, you know, you get featured more and people's expectations rise with that.
I wondered if she was going out for a high five, but I think it was a thumbs up for a photo. I wasn't quite sure.
We can just see now in the distance Rico Bogan. So that gap, which we last checked was 40 seconds, is coming down super fast now. And we can't, there we go, as you start to get eyes on Rico, you can see the cadence. You can see that his stride has really slowed down, whereas Leo is looking consistent and smooth. And pretty soon we're going to see the pass here.
Yeah, he's firmly got him in his sights. It's probably a case now of when, not if. And he's catching the German Rico Bogan at quite a pace here, is Leo Bergere. And you can see the difference in those statistics on screen. 3:13 average pace for Leo Bergere and 3:19 for Rico Bogan. As Rico, he's really slowing there, isn't he? And Leo Bergere is going to make the move. And at this point in the race, he's going to go into second.
Quick tap on the back there from Leo, just a little bit of a encouragement to Rico. But now Rico's challenge is, can he hold on to a podium place? And that challenge is getting tougher by the second. We have got Mathis Margirier not far behind, and the likes of Marten Van Riel and Gregory Barnaby, who are running together super strong as well. Rico's going to have to find another gear if he wants to hold on to a top three today.
And Leo really finding his legs here. He's now within 3 minutes. He's under 3 minutes to Hayden, so that means he's currently running faster than him marginally, but he is definitely moving probably fastest on course right now. We don't have eyes on Sam Long, but I don't think Sam is playing in quite the same league as these boys in terms of pacing at this time.
Will it have been the bike leg keeping up with Hayden Wilde? Hayden clearly pushing that pace. But I just wonder if perhaps Rico Bogan left a bit too much out on the bike leg and didn't leave enough for the run.
Ever so slightly slower for the 5K Leo here. 16:09, still not to be scoffed at within a T100 race, that is not on fresh legs, and only a part of his 18K run. but I think this last split, these last 2Ks, he's probably running even faster than that.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that if this was updated now, we would probably see an even faster 5 kilometre from Leo Bergere, because I agree with you, Jan. I think he's running faster than he was when we first clocked eyes on him, and now quite possibly the fastest runner on course.
So he's making his way under the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. He can just get a sense of the air conditioning. He'll be feeling it on his very, very warm and very, very sweaty skin. There's people there just having a casual drink. There's people cheering him on. These are tough, tough conditions out here in Singapore as we get another view of those brilliant signs from Hayden. Takes the time to high five and say thank you to the fans who've come out to support him here in Singapore.
Well, he's got the time to do it, hasn't he?
He's got the time, but he's also got the coolness to do it in the situation. You always feel like Hayden Wilde is somebody who just, he's loving what he's doing. You know, the struggle of training fatigue can sometimes just dull your senses a little bit, but he's always cool.
Yeah, between him and Vincent Louis, shall we say, for one of the coolest men in the T100 this year.
It's a very different kind of cool.
Yes.
He's the fashion man, he's the styler, he's got a great performance, but Hayden is, sitting on the top of the world at the moment.
All right, well, if it's like this race, it is going to be one great series here on the T100 this year. And just like last season, across the year, athletes are going to be competing to become the T100 World Champion. And we'll work out who's going to finish first this year in the race to Qatar.
We have a race on our hands.
And that is the beauty of having a year-long narrative where we will work out who, certainly here in Singapore, is going to be taking home all of those points in the race to Qatar, and that could become very, very important as we near the end of the season, because points mean prizes, prize money in the T100.
Yes, absolutely, lots of it. And Hayden Wilde here now out onto the last lap of the course. We didn't see him come through that transition zone for the end of lap 2, but he is now out on the final lap of the course. Here we go. So Margerier just being caught up now by both Marten Van Riel. Well, actually, no, sorry, they've gone past Rico Bogan. So Gregory Barnaby no longer in shot, but they've gone past Rico Bogan, which means Margerier is now in third with Van Riel right there in fourth. Van Riel challenging for a podium today, Jan. How do we feel about that?
Goodness, that is... I remember the first Ironman, I couldn't walk for a week. I don't know how he's doing it. Gregory Barnaby just in shot now, so he's obviously been dropped. And this is something that we see that, with the fatigue that comes with an Ironman, that you really can take some time to get going. But it is just such a luck of the draw, and he seems to have done everything as good as it possibly could have gone. Wow, imagine Marten going for a podium right here.
I'm so impressed. I can't say enough. I mean, the idea of doing an Ironman on a different continent a week before taking on the very best in the world here at the T100 and fighting it out for a podium in the death, I can't give enough kudos to Marten Van Riel for that. And it was almost like a switch went a few kilometers into the run, and all of a sudden his pace rose, and now he's fighting it out for that third place.
I mean, you're saying that as professional athletes. I'm thinking, and I'm sure most people at home are thinking, who've ever done an Ironman, even a half or a T100, just imagine going and doing that all again the weekend after on a different continent. These athletes are superheroes, and last year's champion Marten Van Riel really is proving to all of us just how good he is at the sport of triathlon, and perhaps also at the sport of recovery, which
Yes.
he's obviously done a very, very good job on. I mean, just a quick one on that. What will he have done this week?
As little as possible, I think. I mean, obviously he did long haul travel, which is never ideal for your recovery. It takes as much out of you as a hard training day. So that would have been a shock to the system as well. But since that point, I think it's a case of do as minimal as possible, turn your body over, but slowly and steadily to try and increase its sort of active recovery. And here he is. He has broken away from Mathis Bergere at the start of this third lap, and he is clear into third place. Just phenomenal, Jan.
Absolutely phenomenal. Ironically, what I think he would have done is quite a bit of short and hard intensity, right? Because that is something that would get your metabolism flowing. And so counterintuitively, probably some short sprints, strides, we're talking 30 seconds and below kind of efforts, just to activate the body, get the metabolism going. That was certainly something that always helped me a huge amount in terms of accelerating recovery and actually finding the speed again, because it becomes a neuromuscular thing as well, where you're just used to trotting along, but you need the speed right here. As he is building a gap to third.
Is he catching up? Is that Leo? No, so okay, so that's Martin at the top of the screen, and then we've got Mathis a little bit further back. So that's the gap he's getting there.
Well, funny enough, we've got Yuri Kulin within 30 seconds, and Martin is not too far away from Leo Bergere, and the pace he seems to have found in his legs.
It's coming together, really, isn't it? We've got Marten Van Riel there at about 3:35 back. But if we look back to Yuri, so that's third place back to seventh, all within 40 seconds. So this is all to play for on the final lap here still. Just to go to your point there, Jan, about the recovery strategy, would you say, though, that he would have been doing those short efforts right after the Ironman, or given it at least a few days of sort of really, really easy recovery before he puts in those surges?
So my recovery secret session was always a swim the day after, where I would do 30 by 50 meters, and I would put in 10 to 15 meter sprints on every single one of them.
The very day after the
very
Ironman.
day after,
wow.
because you just want to make sure that you turn over the lactic acid, you want to turn over and metabolize as much of the damage that you've done the day before. And when you do a very, very short sprint, it just tends to accelerate that. I'm not sure what he's done, but that is certainly something that would have played into my favors.
Well, what I was actually about to say there is, if he does indeed end up on the podium today, I really hope Alex, or yourself, Jan, if you're down there, ask him that exact question, because I just would love to know.
We've got a view here at the fastest swimmers today. And it really was an impressive swim, wasn't it, from Vincent Louis. He was out in first. It feels a long time ago, doesn't it, that we were talking about the swim with Max Stapley of Great Britain just behind. But look at that, Marten Van Riel had a brilliant swim. He was able to stay there or thereabouts on the bike, but it was the swim really that set him up for this fantastic finish today.
Next we have the fastest bike splits. Hayden Wilde riding delightfully, actually. I mean, he was extremely fast off the front there, riding faster than Rico Bogan even. I wasn't quite sure between the two of them, but obviously very, very close. Mathis Bergere, who just backed off a little bit at the end. Marten Van Riel putting himself in the top 5, and Mika Noot rounding them off.
Go on, Vicky, complete the 3.
So yeah, here we go, we're out onto the run, and at the moment it's not really a surprise to see that Hayden Wilde is the fastest runner with a 3:09 kilometre average. But looking further down that list, Yuri Kulin, our last year champion, at 3:11s. Leo Bergere running 3:12s along with Sam Long, so he's still moving his way through the field. But rounding out the top 5, the man on your screen right now, we are beyond surprised but impressed with Marten Van Riel, 3:13 per kilometre. He's putting on a show today.
Unbelievable. Last year's champion, showing why he is a champion, getting that mindset. He doesn't want to give up, and I tip my hat to this man.
He's not going to give up his title defence without a fight, is he? And I think many would have considered, myself included, that his appearance here today was mostly to put down some kind of result that might be used possibly as a backup result should he have a bad race later on in the year. Just something there to back him up, give him some points, but probably not his best performance. But to come in with a podium result today, as it looks increasingly likely that he might be able to pull off, astonishing.
Yeah, when he will have sat there with his coach at the start of the year, or his team, you know, they will have been deciding, won't they, which events to do and where to go to. And yeah, between these 2 weekends, I don't think they really could have dreamt of a better situation than he's currently in.
Well, I know Martin has 2 main focuses for the year. It is, of course, this series. He wants to defend that title, and he's incredibly passionate about that. But he wanted to have a shot at the Ironman World Championships as well. And to do that, he had to go to a race to qualify. He attempted to do that right at the back end of last season after the T100 series had finished, because he wanted, of course, to focus purely on the T100 and give that his main aim. That race didn't go to plan. He had a crash in that race, and whilst he still ran really well and performed really well on the whole, he didn't get that slot that he needed. So instead he had to try and fit in an Ironman at some point this year, and he thought that the best and most logical place to do that was early on in the season to try and tick it off, and now he can give full focus to the T100. And that's exactly what he did. He did what he needed to last weekend in that Ironman. Won't race, likely, another one now until late on in the season, and he can give all of his attention to trying to defend his world title. But I think this might be a little bit better than he was expecting from his second weekend on the bounce, and I am truly fascinated to hear what he has to say in his interview afterwards. So for that reason alone, I really hope he holds on to this 3rd place.
Well, Jan has left us here in the commentary box to go and do exactly that. So Jan hopefully can go and ask Martin exactly those questions which we're going to want to know the answers to. Just how last year's champion has emerged so well into Singapore from last weekend.
Yeah, that's right. He really has done such a great job. But I mean, we can't see him right now, but Hayden Wilde now approaching a 3-minute lead at the front.
Yeah, Hayden Wilde making this look pretty simple at the moment, and we will keep our eye on exactly how he is getting on at the end. But our focus right now is on Marten Van Riel and just how impressive he looks. Vicky, just in terms of his running stride and how he's looking right now, does he look like he's got an Ironman in his legs?
No, it's the really short answer to that. But this, to me, looks like classic Martin. He always has a little bit of rock and roll through both his head and his shoulders. He also has that on the bike. We saw that earlier. And I would say on the bike, he looked like he had more movement than usual, which was, to me, not unexpected because of the fatigue that we fully expected him to be carrying going into this race. But on the run, he's got a really nice, strong cadence. He's got that little bit of rock and roll through the shoulders and the head. But again, that is absolutely classic of Martin and doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all. So coming towards us there, I think that is Tyler Mislachuk, and he is about to be, I think, lapped by Leo Bergere. So Leo, the second athlete we're about to see coming towards us. So we see Fred Funk also hitting in the opposite direction. Leo, our second placed athlete of the day. And here we go, coming in the opposite direction. They'll pass each other, I think, for the final time now. Hayden Wilde, our leader, and looking set to become the T100 Singapore champion today.
That must be a nice feeling for Hayden Wilde. He's got through that final incline at the Marina Barrage. But he'll also get sights on Marten Van Riel, who's just coming through now.
Yeah, so he'll have full knowledge of that gap. He's wearing a watch, so he'll probably be able to time it as well. He'll know that he's got a lovely gap ahead of both of those athletes, and all he's got to do is hold it together in these final couple of kilometers. And he doesn't look in doubt right now. He looks smooth, he looks good. He's been so controlled and mature in his performances today. We said it early on, as now he's going to pass both Gregory Barnaby and Yuri Kulin, who looks like he's moving up yet another spot as well. But he has had one weakness over major racing in the last season or so, and that has been his pacing and whether he can control himself and that urge he has to just go out super hard. He's done that fantastically today. He's raced the conditions brilliantly, and it looks like he's going to be rewarded with first place.
Yeah, Yuri Kulin on for his best finish since Singapore last year. He had a difficult end, well, after that win in Singapore, he had a fairly challenging set of results, a couple of ninth places. He had a DNF in Las Vegas and then finished 11th in Dubai. I know he will have been disappointed with that, having already won a race on the T100 this year. So All eyes on Yuri Kulin at in 5th place, but potentially, I mean, he was super close to Gregory Barnaby when we saw him pass just then. So
yeah,
if he can make up another place on the race to Qatar, that will be huge.
Definitely, that's going to be a battle that we are going to keep an eye on. But just while you were talking there, we saw Rico Bogan cross over and go in the opposite direction as well. So he's had a really tough last few kilometres. He's now back in 7th place at 5 minutes and 50 back from the lead. So he has really suffered in the latter stages of this race after those efforts he put out right from the gun, really, in the bike. He led the second pack of the swim, but he made it straight to the front of the bike right out of transition and didn't look back. He obviously got company from Hayden Wilde and then later Mathis Marjurier, but he put out so much effort and ran so well in those first few kilometres with Hayden Wilde. He's possibly went a little bit too hard, and he's paying the price now.
Yeah, it's Rico Bogan's first race of 2025, so I'm sure he'll take some lessons. He'll be able to use those across the T100 this year. We're going to see plenty of him across the year. And just interesting to note that the cloud cover really has come on. I mean, I know that we're an hour later than the women's race yesterday, but just looking across the skyline there and the conditions that Hayden is running in, these are definitely kinder than they've had so far on the race.
Oh yeah, it'll definitely be playing into their hands now. And whilst I think on the whole they've had slightly tougher conditions than the women faced yesterday, at this point in the run I would say they've got it better now. So that's helpful when your body temperature is as high as it's possibly going to go now with just a couple of kilometres to go, and this is where you don't want to tip over the edge and have a wobble, wobble off into one of the barriers, have a fall, not be able to complete the race. That would be devastating this close to the line. So having a little bit more shade is not going to cool them down, but it's going to stop them hopefully getting even hotter.
Loving Leo Bergere's glasses. Quite.
Maybe we should ask Alex to get a recommendation for you for some glasses. Yeah, no, Leo having a fantastic race today. And worth mentioning that these two athletes, first and second today, they finished 2nd and 3rd at the Ironman World Championships, 70.3 World Championships right at the end of last season. They also finished 1st and 2nd at the grand final of the short course World Championships in Spain at the end of last year as well. So these two athletes race against each other all the time, and now they're doing it at different distances as well and finishing super close to one another all the time.
Fantastic to see them make the leap to the T100, and we're very, very pleased they have, because if we're going to enjoy this level of racing this year, we are in for a treat. Thumbs up from Hayden Wilde in exactly the same place.
The same spot, right?
As Kate Wolf, I think, realised that she had won yesterday.
We're going to call this celebration corner, I think.
Yeah. And Hayden and the motorbike driver just sharing a quick word there.
It's nice to see that he is clearly totally in control at this point. He's not under too much strain. He's played a nigh on perfect race. There we go, a little bit of a G up there to the motorbike rider, and he can enjoy these final, well, he's got just over a kilometre to go now, this final kilometre or so till he takes that blue carpet and the finish tape.
You might be sat at home thinking Hayden Wilde has made this look super easy. You think how good Kate Wolf looked yesterday. Both of them you think back to the scenes of last year with Yuri Kulin on the finish line, looking pretty worse for wear. But Hayden Wilde is very, very happy and satisfied to take the high fives here of the fans here in Singapore.
Yeah, 800 metres of high fives is a lot of high fives, but he's got 3 minutes, so he can do all the high fives and reward these fans, these spectators who've come out to watch, who've cheered him on, who've given him the boost, and maybe the times where we don't know, but maybe he was feeling a little bit lower. He hasn't looked like that though. He has truly looked fantastic all day. Swim, bike and run, a really solid all-round performance, and what a statement to put out at the opening race of the T100 in 2025.
Some of the best seats in the house in Singapore, having a drink and watching our likely eventual champion, Hayden Wilde, round the final few corners here in Singapore, around the Marina Bay. And he looks absolutely brilliant out there in front. Marten Van Riel, not far behind. He is on the podium.
Can you hear the noises? That's the effort that he's putting in. Let's just listen.
To your left of this, I'm coming to around the pole, perfect.
as I've said that, I sort of stopped making them, but the grimace on his face was matched by some grunts as well. So he is giving everything to get a podium today.
So Hayden Wilde takes the applause and will step on to the blue carpet here in Singapore. He fought so hard on that bike. He managed to stretch out the lead on the run, which really cemented his dominance here in Singapore. He's weaving round to get as many high fives as possible. And the Olympic silver medalist has made his way onto the T100. Hayden Wilde, you're a T100 winner. Congratulations.
Taking his time to take the tape, but there he goes. He's arrived with a bang, and he is delighted, as he should be, to do so.
We saw a GPS of his run just there going down the side. It would have been a proper snake, but Hayden Wilde, congratulations. That was amazing.
There we go. I love it, he says.
Yep, yeah, it's all good.
Talk about not being phased.
It's all good, mate.
Yeah, just having a nice cool down there, but as he was saying there, I'm all good, mate, and not in any stress. And oh, lovely moment there with his mum. As Alex interviewed her earlier, we found out she doesn't get to travel to many of the races, so this will be a lovely moment for them to share.
She couldn't have picked a better race to turn up to.
So many red lights.
That's Fred Funk coming round. He's still got a lap to go, so still got a lap left for Fred Funk. Not been the race he will have hoped and dreamed of, but we've got a little bit of time left before we welcome Leo Bergere down the infamous blue carpet. But he's had a fantastic race today as well, as we touched upon several times. Not in his peak shape, had a little bit of an Achilles niggle, but found some serious form today.
Didn't fancy the ice bath either, you would think.
Felt good, eh? That right, my heart rate was high.
Just apologies for the language there. But Marten Van Riel making that journey that Hayden Wilde has just done in front of him, rounding those final few corners here in Singapore. Just got enough energy to extend an arm to the crowd. I think we're really starting to see the pain that he's been in over the course of this run. That is a grimace.
It is, and again, I could hear the sounds he was making once again. There you go. That was a really audible one there. He is giving absolutely everything. This is what it means to put in a solid result and try and defend your title. Now we're back with Leo Bergere as he also gives out some high fives. He's rounding his last couple of corners and will shortly be on that blue carpet himself.
This has been hugely impressive from a world champion in short course triathlon, an Olympic medalist too. It's great to see Leo Bergere with us on the T100 for 2025.
And again, another hotshot contract. What an addition he has been to this racing. Absolutely loving the contribution of these hotshots so far, mixing it up, showing what these short course guys can
do. Leo Bergere then, the Frenchman, finishing in second, taking on as much of that cold water as possible.
Anything else?
I'm good, thank you.
Well done, well done.
He also saying he's good, he's good. Both of our first two athletes then crossing the line. And
my heart rate was
still in good shape.
On the ride than it was on the ride. Yeah.
So Marten Van Riel making his way on the blue carpet. I think that grimace has just turned into a smile. What a race from Marten Van Riel.
Because Jan said it was a stupid idea. That's why I had to prove him wrong.
Well done, brother. I'll give you that one.
Yuri Kulin crossing the finish line in 4th place. He is delighted, as he should be. That was quite the comeback there on that run.
And he said he wanted to remember the finish line this year. I think with that reaction, he's in a very, very different state to how he finished in 24.
You are out of this world.
Can we just address what Marten Van Riel said? I needed to prove everyone wrong. Well, Martin, you did. That's Gregory Barnaby there crossing the line in 5th place. Another brilliant result from him. I really think he's made an incredible account of himself today.
Marten Van of France making his way down the blue carpet. Superb result for him.
Yeah, I think on balance he'll be pleased. He lost a couple of places right towards the end there, but super tight racing in incredibly tough conditions.
Finished 7th overall in the standings in 2024. Some good points in the race to Qatar. How's your French, Vicky? Can you translate for us?
Average. And no is the answer to both those two questions. But yeah, they look like two happy Frenchmen, don't they, with 2nd and 6th places on the day. But surviving these conditions and putting down solid results is incredibly impressive, especially when opening your season.
Brilliant sportsmanship, as we can see from the athletes just round the finish line. Right, let's get some reaction down there with Alex. He's with Hayden Wilde.
He is indeed. Winners are grinners. One race, top deck. How good a day has that been?
Yeah, no, it was a heck of a day, you know. I had to be smart out there today. I went off pretty hard on the swim, and for me it was just too hard. So I dropped back into that second group and paced myself, and then actually started getting more positions throughout the swim, and on the ride just started to head down and ass up, and off we went.
Absolutely, getting it done. How impressed
Absolutely.
are you?
I mean, last week you raced 1K. This week you're racing 100 at the T1 to the T100. How does it feel, man? How does it feel to come out on top?
Yeah, like it's that sort of race that's really hard to predict, you know, like if you go into that red zone, you know, more than once, it'll bite you hard, and we probably saw that with a few of the top guys out there, and that's what I felt like in the swim. It was real hot on the ride. It was so hard to cool down, but I was just in the downhills to recover, and then my plan was just to
well done, Sam Long, coming home.
And my plan was just to keep my heart rate down on the run, and yeah, I think my heart rate was lower on the run than it was on the ride. So
something you prepared for over the winter. I mean, pacing, you know, I love you, but pacing has not been your strength over the last, let's call it 12 months. Something you've obviously matured. What, have you been working on that consciously?
Yeah, just some longer sessions out on the road, and you know, just those slightly tempo builds as well, just to kind of progress the heart rate up slowly. So yeah, it's better to, you know, as much as you know, it's easier to descend. I never do it, but today I did, so it was really nice.
The last thing I said to you before you went to the start line was, please be smart on this one. And it looked like you were actually smart, but the thing that you said back was, I'll be smart for this one. I think you need to probably implement that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, like, you know, when you come back on turf, and, you know, as I said, like, I think with Martin back without doing 180 mile a week before, I think, you know, it's going to be a lot more closer, and, you know, as I said, like, this races are hard to predict what's going to be happening the rest of the season, so I'll take this one and, yeah, set up the next one.
Race to Qatar is on. You've got a full set of points on the board. Must feel good. What's next for you?
Yeah, go back to Andorra and chill out for a bit, and then I'll miss some of the US races for the T1, but head to Yokohama for the World Series, and then get ready for, you know, Frejus and Valencia.
Can I ask a couple of quick questions? Because you've got your parents here. We had a really nice chat to your mum earlier actually as well, and she said she doesn't actually get to see you race very often. I just wonder how special it is to get it done in front of mum and dad. What the old man said to you in the team hug at the end.
Yeah, no, it was super nice to have them here, you know. They wanted to come watch a T100, and yeah, it's a direct flight from New Zealand, so, you know, the first overseas race they ever saw me racing live was Paris, so this is the second one, so it's really nice. And that's good to have them here. So
that's a good impact by the sound of it. And I want to ask you as well about handing out the shirts to the New Zealand All Black Sevens this week as well. I asked your mum whether you were more nervous doing that. It's quite an environment to have to step into, or whether you were more nervous standing on the start line today. The answer is?
Yeah, I think I had more shakes
trying to give some sort of motivational speech to, you know, one of the biggest teams in the world. So yeah, no, it was nice to see the boys. I do some gym with them. Well, I try to and look at them with finesse, but you know, they're just an amazing team, and the mana they bring, you know, definitely got me through the line.
That's great to hear. Quick final thought.
Hayden, I just want to thank you actually for bringing joy to the sport. Honestly, you've always got a smile on your face. You bring a good energy. How do you do it? Like, a lot of athletes get caught up in the length of it, in being tired all the time, the seriousness of it. You just live, man. Honestly, I look up to you. That's a great thing to have.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, and I think Kyle can relate as well. Like, you know, we've had part-time jobs. We know what life is like outside of the sport, and you know, we can't take this for granted. You know, you've been at the top, and you know, and it's, for me, it's, you know, it's a pleasure and it's an honor to be at the top, and you just got to enjoy it. You know, you only live once, and you're only young once, and why not just give it everything? And everyone's like, and I've got this saying now that 2025 is get greedy, and you know, people say I'm greedy with racing, so you know, as I said, you're young once, and you're at the top, you know, for not that long, so why not get greedy and race a lot?
Love it, go get it.
Go on, Hayden, quick final word, because we're going to say thank you so much for your thoughts today, but I know how much the itch must be ready to scratch now off the back of this. I mean, desperate to get back to San Fran. How much have you enjoyed watching him today, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I caught you said that you weren't racing San Fran, so I'm a bit relieved for that one, to be honest. But yeah, it's super motivating with these guys coming up. We need to lift our level to match, and it's only going to progress the sport. It's going to make it more and more exciting. And yeah, like Hayden said, you know, it's easier than digging holes being out here.
Very true. Thank you so much for your thoughts. It's been brilliant having you in our studio today. Well done to you. We'll let both of you go and celebrate, and we'll hand you back to
karaoke
for a little bit. Karaoke it is that okay?
Well done, bro.
Jan can lead off.
Oh, karaoke, I fancy a bit of that. But before we do that, let's have a look at the race from today. Vicky, where did Hayden win it?
Well, he was just so smooth all day, wasn't he? There he is on screen. That was him catching up to Rico, and the two of them working together to build a solid lead on the bike and into T2. They headed out onto the run within just about a second of one another, so really tight. And very early on, it was Hayden who started to take the lead. Came up, gave a little fist bump to Rico in acknowledgement of the work they'd done. And pretty soon after that, it was nothing but clear road in front of him. A bit further back, we saw the likes of Marten Van Riel charging through the field, coming home with another podium result. High fives for Hayden. He had plenty of time for that, didn't he, with a 3-minute winning margin in the end. And he still, with all of this celebrating the end, came home with the fastest run of the day. Hayden Wilde, our first T100 winner of the 2025 series.
Fantastic scenes and brilliant sportsmanship from those who have competed here in Singapore. They know the challenge and they know what they have been through today. Let's recap, shall we, the results and have a look at where the standings leave us for the race to Qatar. Confirmation of Hayden Wilde winning, Leo Bergere in second, and Marten Van Riel in third. He takes the final podium place. Yuri Kulin, last year's champion, manages fourth. Gregory Barnaby of Italy in fifth. And Matthias Margerier in sixth, Antonio Benito Lopez in seventh, Sam Long in eighth. A decent result from him given his situation or coming out last of the swim. Mika Newt in ninth and Rico Bogan in 10th. And just confirmation there of the fastest sectors, and Hayden Wilde with the fastest run of anyone, Rico Bogan with the fastest bike of anyone. And just confirmation, it was Vincent Luis with the fastest swim. He was absolutely mighty out in the Marina Bay. And this, obviously, because we've only had one race, leaves us with where we stand in the race to Qatar. 35 points for Hayden Wilde. He'll go home very, very happy with his haul here. Leo Bergere in second with 29, and 26 for Marten Van Riel. All right, let's hand back down to Alex.
Yes, Leo and Marten are alongside. One looked nice and controlled today. One looked like they went to the well many, many, many times over. I'll let you work out which one was which, but I'm going to come to you first of all, Leo. Congratulations. Just talk us through your performance today, how pleased you were and how comfortable that felt, if at all, today.
To be honest, I'm quite surprised of the performance because I kind of had the worst winter of my career with an Achilles injury. I was sick for a week 2 weeks ago, and so I wasn't expecting much of this race. I took it very easy, and I tried to stay really in control the whole race. and I understood that the main goal was to stay very patient until the run, and also on the run stay very in control.
You often hear that a terrible rehearsal can lead to a fantastic performance. At what point today did you think actually this is coming together as I want it?
I think already on the swim I didn't feel the warm temperature of the water, and on the bike I tried to stay smart, you know, not following all the attacks of the guys in front, and in the end I was staying in a gap that was still catchable on the run. So yeah, that was my main goal, to stay really in control, not burn too many matches too early in the race, and I just want to thank my people back at home, my girlfriend, my coach, and my friends, my training mates, and of course my sponsors. It's a nice debut.
Fantastic. There's a lovely moment with you and Rico Bogan as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Leo, not to take away from you, but Marten, I think today, in the 2.5 decades of triathlon I've done, I think that's maybe one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. I called you out. I said you're looking too tired. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. Thank you for proving me wrong. First of all, where did you find the energy, and what was your prep going into this race?
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole week I was actually feeling really tired. Just really easy training, which for me it's very hard because I love training too much. But this week I actually barely did anything. And yeah, yesterday I listened to your speech saying that that it was a stupid idea to do these combinations. So I was like, man, I have to prove the GOAT wrong.
Yeah, I love that. I honestly love that. I think that's the mark of a champion, though. If you take something like that, just kind of meant and kind of honestly what I thought would happen today, and turn it into something like that. You find that you need that little bit of a push sometimes to prove someone wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I love to prove people wrong since the start of my career, and like now as well. Like I really want to, put my mark on triathlon. It's what I said last year, and I think being on the podium next to Leo and Hayden, that's something I can be very proud of after a week like this. So yeah, very happy.
Very cool. Leo, how's your Achilles feeling now? What's your, are you kind of in the green now? Are you looking to, progress this season? What's your plan?
Yeah, so I think the race, if it was going to be 1 week earlier, it wasn't the green light. But I continued the work, working on my Achilles, the rehab, and to be honest, I was ready to pull out of the race after 1 lap or 1K if I was feeling something in my Achilles. Not taking any risks for the rest of the season, because it's going to be a long season. I want to win big races, and it feels that I can't completely have a win for the moment, because guys like Hayden are
considering it's pretty close.
Yeah, but always someone stronger in front. So yeah, I think I will have more opportunities in the future.
I'm just laughing about the fact you wanted to quit after 1K, and another 99K later, you finally crossed the finish line. It is remarkable what you guys do. I just want to ask you, we started today, Marten, by talking about heavy is the head that wears the crown, and you are the hunted in the T100 this season. Is that an easy pressure to carry and to handle? Are you aware that it's going to be a greater challenge to retain your title this year than last?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been saying it all week. I think that the class of some of the new guys is really high. I mean, you see it, like two of the rookies on the circuit are above me on the podium. So I knew it was going to be very hard. And obviously, then having done an Ironman last week, I didn't make it easy on myself. So I hope that the next races I can make it a little bit easier on myself and hopefully give the boys a good battle.
It's been quite a week's work. Next weekend, is it a bit of gardening and putting your feet up and watching telly, or are you doing something else?
I don't know. I think actually that it's Marathon des Sables this week. So
righto, good stuff.
Might fly over to Morocco.
Maybe you can do the Medoc one where they hand out wine on every aid station. It's probably a better recovery for an early season.
Listen, well done to both of you. Heroic performances today, particularly you, Marten. We'll let you step out and go to your recovery and your celebrations, but thank you so much. We'll give you a big round of applause from the crowd alongside as well. Leo and Marten, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. And that gives us a couple of minutes, a chance to take a breath. I've done absolutely nothing today, and you've done a little bit more, but not much. It's been, in you come, Yuri, congratulations.
Finally,
congratulations, last year's champion, but a really big celebration for you coming over the finish line this time around. Is that because you can remember it and you're with us and you're in the moment and you've actually got an experience you can take with you and remember forever? Tell us about today.
Yeah, I think all of that is true.
I think I was super happy with winning last year, but one of the things that really stuck with me was the fact that I got messages after from people saying like, oh, we were sad we couldn't get a picture with you or a high five, and I think that's what sport is all about. Of course, the victories are important, but I think the community that we can inspire is sometimes even as important as taking that victory. So yeah, this been massive for me. Like Hayden won today, but I won for myself today as well. So yeah, this means the world to me.
That's brilliant.
Yuri, it's been a tough road for you since you collapsed on this finish line and gave us every ounce of energy you had in your body. How do you feel? I mean, it's been a long winter. You've got some positive momentum. You looked like you were struggling in the race. You held tough. 4th place. I mean, it's a great start to the season.
Yeah, I made some changes in my environment, and I'm very happy with the grit I showed. And I can remember a chat in the lobby in Dubai. And I think I'm kind of start slowly figuring out that you need to build brick by brick until you become as big as you. So I want to have a special thanks to my mental coach and my new coaching surroundings around me. It's been a tough road, and I'm not always an easy athlete, but I do think that makes beautiful things as well.
You obviously had a fantastic moment here last year, but it was a moment. Do you feel better set for a more sustained challenge in 2025?
Yeah, I think last year was amazing. I still can't believe that at one moment I was leading the series, but in the end I was fighting for the last contract. So it brings a lot winning, but on the other hand, at what cost? You know, like I'd rather finish every race 4th now and get a 4th contract than having to fight at the end for another contract. But I think I'm off to a good start. Last year I was a wild card, so I really needed to earn my spot in the series.
Yeah.
And now I have a spot, and now I know I will be in the grand final, and it's a long way to Qatar.
Brilliant.
Let's start to Singapore.
Absolutely, but it's fantastic to have you with us and smiling, and well done today on a really gutsy performance. And
thanks so much.
Probably off to the kitchen now to a bit of cooking. We were hearing about that earlier, so I'm sure the athletes have got a real treat.
Any gas?
Absolutely, we're all coming around to
red
your
sauce for you. Go get yourself a goose dinner.
Well done, Yuri. We'll let you step out, go and enjoy your recovery, enjoy your celebrations as well. That's almost us done. Just very quickly, God, it's good to have the T100 back, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And what a race it was. Honestly, all the highs and lows. 2 new champions today. And it's been a wonderful weekend.
It really has. And not long to go, of course, until we are in San Francisco for leg 2 of the 2025 T100. The race to Qatar is well and truly underway. We've had a rough and wild weekend in Singapore. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.